Hi, welcome back. It's been a while, definite while. Apologies. Time and life has a way of getting away from us, but we're back. And we have lots of exciting things to talk about. Lots of things have been going on in the industry. Not so good, but also lots of good games have come out. So, as usual, we'll start off by talking about one of the cats just jumped on the table. Anyway, talking about what we've been playing. And then we will move into maybe talking about some current events, in particular, the overall just absolute state of the industry, layoffs and all that, and our thoughts on that. And then we'll move into the topic of the day, the games that have had the most influence on our gaming tastes, which are not even necessarily your favorite games. They don't have to be. Just games that have had quite an influence on what we've preferred to play over the years. We'll kick it off. Don, why don't you start us off? What have you been playing?
Sure. Hello, everybody. What I've been playing. Well, I think the last time we recorded, I had mentioned I beat Final Fantasy 16 and was working on Evil West. I think it came out last year. I beat that. I liked it. I was way more in detail last time, so I won't go into that too much. But after that, I kind of was jumping around a little bit. It's kind of in a gamer's funk, if you will. I bought a couple games. One was Unicorn Overlords.
Oh yeah, Unicorn Overlords.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's Unicorn Overlords. And I put about 15, 20 hours in, and then jumped to the next thing. It's good. I might go back and play it. The story was pretty good. The voice acting was okay. I was talking to Zach a little bit about it. It kind of reminded me of, it's sort of supposed to be like a strategy game, and I thought it was going to be similar to Fire Emblem or Tactics Ogre.
Where you have like control of individual units and you're choosing their actions each turn.
Yeah, Final Fantasy Tactics even.
Yeah.
But the way it works is you sort of set your party up with items and certain weapons, and you have their like couple in the front, a couple in the back, and then you just battle, and they just do everything for you. So you don't have any control in the actual battle. So it just runs out how it would. You do get a little bit of like a screenshot before you start the battle if you're going to win or lose. It'll tell you straight up like, oh, you're going to end up doing 150 damage and they're going to do 5 damage against you. So I don't know. And then you could switch up, who actually took the battle on. So it's cool. I might go back.
So the individual like battles aren't like, they don't necessarily result in the destruction of one of the two units, or
it could. I mean,
yeah.
If you have your setup, like if you have archers in the back and gladiators in front, and it just so happens you're going up against someone like a party that has those weaknesses, they could just destroy that whole unit, right away.
Because what you've described about this reminds me of Ogre Battle, which is on the Super Nintendo. And in that game, you would have this little skirmish that would happen when your unit and an enemy unit got close to each other. And it was possible to just wipe them out entirely, but it was more common that like one of the two groups would just lose the fight, and then they'd be pushed back. It was like they were forced to retreat in the skirmish, and then kind of you'd have like a new position for that unit afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't kill the unit and they do more damage to you than you did to them, you'll have to, like you said, they'll push you away, and you'll sort of be frozen and kind of at a disadvantage. Then your other party has to come in. So anyways, it's pretty good. I might go back. But other than that, currently playing Hellblade 2. I've heard kind of mixed things about it before I even started playing it. The main thing was the length of the story, because it's been in development, I think, for about 4 years or something like that. And, they're like, oh, a 4 or 5 hour game after all that. I'm sort of taking it in as an experience rather than, an actual video game. It's very cinematic. The visuals are the best I've probably ever seen in a video game. I mean, it's top notch. There's not too much gameplay element involved. Similar to the first one, it's very simple: parry, dodge, roll, and then heavy and light attacks. Similar puzzles as the first one. I'm liking the story though so far. I'm still kind of early. I mean, it's a short game, but I haven't put too much time into it.
The first one was really short too, wasn't it?
Yeah, I want to say it was probably around the same.
Yeah.
So first get drug for for the length. I think it's
Yeah.
kind of odd, but I'm digging it. I like like I said, the graphics. I'm just sitting there in awe of some of the cutscenes, and it's very continuous. So it'll go straight from cutscene into gameplay. So I'm liking that. I want to finish that this week, hopefully. And then I'm playing Paper Mario: Thousand Year Door. Still good as I remember. It's one of my favorite GameCube games for sure. I'm really early in that too. I think I've gotten one crystal star. The writing still as funny as I remember. The combat's still fun. It's easier than I remember, but I was a lot younger back then. Yeah. And then I decided to go back to finally beating Hollow Knight. So I'm farther than I've ever been in Hollow Knight. And yeah, that's what I've been playing.
Well, good luck this time.
Thank you. I plan to beat it.
Well, Robert, what have you been up to?
Lots of stuff. I'm fatter than ever, which means I'm at home playing more video games. The list is long. The standout for something that has impressed me, which I've been talking to Zach about, is I'm playing Nier Automata for the first time. And I really had no clue what the gameplay was like. I just knew it was an action game. So when it starts, there's this shmup sequence. And you're like flying around in this kind of mech plane thing. And it's really cool. And then you transition to the land-based combat. But what I didn't know is that the shmup elements would remain even in that part of the game. So you have this like floating turret thing that just has like infinite bullets and can always be shooting. So there's sequences where the camera will like reposition overhead or just get into different spots, and you're like aiming and shooting, but then also still engaging in the melee combat. So I thought that was really, really impressive, and I've been having fun with that. But that game has taken the back burner because I'm playing through Paper Mario right now. It's good. I'm not big on some of the dialogue changes, but for the most part, it's faithful, and the overhaul of the visuals is just great. I was disappointed they make you suffer through the rearranged soundtrack all the way up through the first dungeon. After that, you have a choice, and not listening to it, you can put on the original music. I wish you could just do it from the beginning. But Paper Mario's been good. I finally got my hands on Mario vs. Donkey Kong, which I had not been able to get for a couple months. And that's also really fun. I forgot just how much I enjoy the platforming challenges in that game. I know that Mario 94 obviously came out before Mario 64, but one thing that's always impressed me with that game and then the Game Boy Advance game is how it's mimicking Mario's 3D kind of agile movements. So you can do handstands, you can do side jumps, you can do all these different things, but it's in 2D. And I've always thought that was just really well done. And Rise of the Ronin, I'm like methodically going through the map in that game. And the others, I guess, can chime in. I don't think it's truly a Souls-like, but it is challenging in terms of its combat. It's open world, and I kind of forgot that game existed until I was in Walmart. And I looked up and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about Rise of the Ronin. They had one copy left, so I bought it. And I've really been enjoying it. It's not perfect. It has a little quality of life issues. I think that it can feel, how do I describe this? A little old-fashioned sometimes in some of the things it does. Some of the texturing in the overworld, like it just, I don't know how to say this. It's not going to make sense maybe, but it feels like a Team Ninja game in good ways and bad ways. But it's part of the charm and why I like it. Repeating dialogue at certain points where it's like they say the same things over and over, but doesn't matter. It's just really fun. My one gripe isn't really a gripe, but like I spent so long going through the map that when I finally got to the second map, I was like, oh no, there's a whole other map. I'm going to have to do what I just did on this one. And so I had to take like kind of a break so I could re-energize for it. I interspersed a little bit of Days Gone while I was playing that game just to mix it up. And Days Gone is fun. It's it's like The Last of Us. It's the least of us. It's similar, but not just not as good, obviously.
Where are you in Days Gone?
I just got yelled at by what's his name? Boozer? Is his name? Boozer was getting mad because Deke had gone to go visit his dead wife's grave, which was really odd.
Yeah.
We're just moving on, man. She's dead. I was like, oh. But I'm just past that, I think. Now, the game... spoiler alert here. I'm terrible with scary games. So that game's a little creepy, so it's been making it hard to go through the overworld. However, it's kind of formulaic, so it's becoming less creepy as I'm going through. So like when you find the nests, you burn them out, and then you can kind of explore and get loot. I find that very enjoyable, but I don't like that I feel massively understocked with ammo. Like I could never get through an entire raid of a nest without just being on fumes and just only having melee. And maybe I'm doing something wrong, but I found that
you are.
Yeah, probably. Don't believe the lies.
I think you might have been just giving him grief right now, but you definitely swung your bat a lot throughout the game.
I did, but that's just because I preferred to... I'm impatient. I was just like, I could take aim right now, like step back, aim, fire, or I could just bludgeon this thing to death. And so I would just bludgeon it to death. Plus, like, I've made the nail bat, and that thing is extremely... that, and then once you get the bat that has the... it's like a power saw that you can attach to it. I was just destroying everything. So, plus, you need to be a master of the headshot like me.
Anyway. But yeah, it's beautiful. Who knew Oregon was so spectacular? But I love the environment. And it's neat that you're on a motorcycle. That was another point, though, that was a little annoying for me, which is how I felt like you ran out of gas too quickly. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I'm like constantly just like, am I low on fuel? Am I low on fuel? That gets a little played out. But like overall, I enjoy the game. The only reason that I'm not finishing it right now is because I'm, again, Paper Mario, Rise of the Ronin. Those are like the two main things that I'm flip-flopping back and forth between. And Persona 5 I have gotten back into. I had stopped playing it, and the mood struck me, so I'm back to playing that too. So I have like 3 things that I'm like playing right now. But it's been kind of nice because there was a long stretch where I wasn't really playing too much, and now I'm back to playing things.
All right. I guess I'll just jump in here. I've been playing a lot too. There has been a lot that's been on my radar that really caught my interest. Rise of the Ronin. I don't think that came out by the time our last episode came out, so I don't think I talked about it. But Rise of the Ronin. In fact, I think Rise of the Ronin, Princess Peach Showtime, and Stellar Blade all came out the same day. Was that right? Or what was the third game that came out?
No, the third one was Dragon's Dogma 2.
Dragon's Dogma, that's what it was. So a lot of games came out at the same time. But Rise of the Ronin, started playing it at launch, and I haven't finished it yet, but I've sunk a lot of time into that game, and it's really, really fun. I was just like kind of surprised by how much I just like jumped in. Just got sucked in. It's pretty clear that the game takes a lot of influence from Ghost of Tsushima. Some things I think they just kind of straight up lifted. But if you've played Ghost of Tsushima, you have the advantage of being super familiar with a lot of the mechanics already. So it's a really great game, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm not big on character creators. I've just never really found the appeal of them. I'd rather just have a cool character that you're given to play just from the get-go. But I definitely can find something to like in most character creators, but I really liked the character creator in this one. And you get to create 2 characters, which is very cool. And I really liked like how I made them look in the beginning, and then like I gave my character this really neat costume that he has right now. Plus there's a glamour system. If you've played, like, for example, Final Fantasy XIV, and there's the glamour system, and if you're not familiar, you can wear, like, no matter what armor or pieces of armor or accessories you're wearing, with the glamour system, you can make them permanently appear to be, some other piece of armor, some armor set that you really, really like, so you don't look like an idiot. Or
so you can have the better stats of the new items you're finding without committing to the appearance of those new items.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't have to sacrifice your cool factor for the better stats. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a really cool mechanic, and so that's in Rise of the Ronin as well. So my character looks really cool because of that. And then I put down Rise of the Ronin for a minute so I could play Princess Peach Showtime. And honestly, I was a little disappointed by that game. This is not a plug, but, you know, you can go read my review on nintendojo.com. But I don't know. I wanted to like it. I thought it was cool that Peach has all of her different costumes and the different abilities. And, like, they are cool. It's just the game is way too easy. And you know, sometimes you'll get people that are like, well, it's a Nintendo game, or well, it was rated E, kind of like, what were you expecting? It's like, well, that to me doesn't mean anything. Nintendo has obviously produced plenty of games that are an actual challenge for players of all ages, but Peach was not marketed as like a child's game, you know, like a Barbie or Hello Kitty type level of difficulty game. But that's what this was, and it was just a lot of like mashing the B button. And the B button is like a catch-all. You know, it'll do whatever your transformation is. The B button will do that transformation's action. But there was really no real strategy involved. Not very difficult. But there were some slight difficulty spikes with the boss battles, which was kind of strange. Like, they just kind of left me wondering in the end, who exactly was this game made for? Was it made for a kid? Was it made for the adult player? Because there's sort of something for both players here, but mostly they are, this game seems like a game for children. And it was just odd to me. And it seemed like a waste because the level of creativity in the game was so high. You know, her costumes are so well done, and the abilities for each one are so good. But then the actual stages for each ability are a mixed bag. Like, you know, the patisserie, I'm probably not pronouncing correctly, but, you know, that had some kind of cool mini games that you were doing, versus like the cowboy or cowgirl was just like okay, versus like the ninja and the kung fu master were really strong, and then the detective was a freaking snooze fest, you know. I mean, so it was just like this really weird, uneven pacing. It was just a strange game, and you know, Peach was like massively OP, and like it felt that way. And you know, Robert and I got to go to GDC in March, and we actually got to attend both the Zelda and the Mario talks that they had at GDC. We barely got into the Zelda one. We were the first in line for the Mario one, and Takashi Tezuka was there, and we were in the front row, and he's talking about how in Mario Wonder, the flowers, like the talking flowers, are just supposed to be hype men. That's their entire reason for their existence. Well, likewise, in Peach Showtime, the feats, I think is what they're called, these little kind of like generic-looking people, they're constantly hyping you up. And they're like, oh, Peach, you're so strong, you're so amazing. And that combined with her OP nature just kind of made it feel like they were trying to do a little bit of some like girl boss stuff with Peach that I wasn't really thrilled about. Because Peach doesn't need that. Like, Peach is already a very strong character. She has been for decades now. She really doesn't need to get like the girl boss treatment, and it was disappointing for me. Also, you know, they changed up her voice because, you know, Peach, you know, Peachy, and that has that very soft kind of feminine voice. They basically gave her Rosalina's voice. And so I was like, am I playing Peach or am I playing Rosalina right now? And it's almost insulting. You know, like, she can't be strong unless she sounds a little more mature, you know, a little deeper and ethereal, and it's just kind of annoying.
And this is coming from someone who does have more of a Rosalina voice.
Yeah, I mean, it was just overall not what I was hoping for from that game, and it made me kind of sad. But
did you play the first one?
Super Princess Peach. I played a little bit of that game, but it's been so long I can't even really remember. I remember like engaging with the emotion mechanics and stuff. And see, like, I'll be honest, I think that Nintendo was probably reacting to the, in my opinion, unfair negative reactions to that game. And I think they're like, well, we don't want another controversy. We don't want them claiming that it's sexist. So they just went onto the opposite end of the spectrum and then just made her too girl bossy, and it was just kind of annoying. So that, I don't know. And then Zach had actually made a good point that I actually included in my review, which was it undermines her character. Like, she's already strong. She is a strong character, but then you undermine her strength by making everyone around her a pushover and like one hit KO kind of stuff. So,
grown up in a ball pit, beating up children.
Yeah, I had used the example of Kramer in Seinfeld in the episode where he takes a karate class with a bunch of little kids, and he's just beating up little kids. That's what it felt like. So that was really disappointing for me. But then I moved on to Animal Well. I'm actually playing. So in addition to Rise of the Ronin, I just finished Animal Well, and I'm also playing Little Kitty Big City. Animal Well and Little Kitty Big City were both at the Nintendo partner event at GDC. Robert and I got to try both in person there. My review for Animal Well just went up on Nintendo Joe, and it's great. If you like Metroidvanias, if you like games that do not hold your hand and just throw you into the world like the original Zelda, you will like Animal Well, I think. And I won't dive too much into it, but just I thought it was cool how the dev, Billy Basso, when I talked to him at GDC and I was about to play and I was like, hey, what should I know before jumping in? He's like, actually, I don't really want to tell you anything. I really just want you to just jump in. And I think he just wanted to see how people interacted with this game doing that. And I was able to just jump in. Like I said, it reminded me heavily of the original Zelda in that way. But yeah, very exploration-based, experimental, and it opens up a ton of questions. What is the well? What is this journey that I'm on? So that was pretty cool. Very, very strong game. Little Kitty Big City is definitely in the cozy core category, which is not my type of game, but it really, despite that, I'm having a lot of fun with it. Loving cats, I think, helps a lot. Surrounded by cats right now in my real life. But yeah, I mean, it's just like you play as this cat and you're falling asleep. You had fallen asleep on your windowsill and you accidentally fall out of the window from your multi-story apartment building and you have to find your way back up to get home again. And you're interacting with all the different animals in the street, birds, stray cats, raccoons, etc. And you're in Japan. It's kind of suburban Japan, but somewhere between urban and suburban. And the dev actually told me that even though it doesn't explicitly tell you that you're in Japan, like it's very obvious that that's where you are. And he had mentioned that he made the game with his kids, that he actually quit his full-time job. His kids wanted to make a game about cats. They didn't really see many at the time that they started development, and then he just went from there. Very cool game. They gave me some 3D printed figures of the cat in the game at GDC, so that was pretty cool. But I'm having a good time with that one. I'm just not done with it yet. And then just started Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door. That's one of my all-time favorite games. It really heavily influenced like my love of writing in general, but also just my love of strong writing in games. Like that is one of the only games that's actually made me genuinely laugh out loud when I was playing it. And I've jumped back into it and I'm already laughing. Like the writing is just and the localization in particular is really, really strong. And at the time that the game came out, Nintendo Power had done an interview. They'd actually done a story/interview about that localization team because it was so good. And I'm really glad that even at the time, people recognized like this is some pretty stellar writing and localization, and gave them the recognition they deserved. So I'm playing that now. But yeah, that's probably it from me.
No, you're not off the hook.
Oh.
I don't know how you managed to skip over Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Oh, good point. Sorry, I don't know how I did either. Yeah, played and finished Rebirth, which was pretty incredible, pretty amazing. I'm not gonna get into spoilers and stuff. Like it's been out for a while, and there's just so much to say, and I'll be sitting here forever. But the ending, I don't know, man.
They did it again.
Yeah, they did it again. This freaking, multiverse of madness, just alternate timeline trash, and I just really don't know how this third game is going to end and how they're going to conclude the trilogy, but I don't know. It was the exact same experience as Remake. Super solid, love the majority of the game, and then you get to the end and I'm just like, what is this? Like, what is this just Kingdom Hearts garbage? And I'm just like, no offense to anyone who loves Kingdom Hearts. I just mean like all the convoluted everything. It's just, anyway. I was at least glad that I got to romance Tifa, because I can't stand Aerith, and I don't care if that makes people hate me. I've never liked Aerith, and I was just glad that I got to ignore her as much as possible and give her bad answers, and just because I'm Cloud Tifa all the way.
So Aerith is great. As someone who also likes Tifa more as a partner for Cloud, Aerith is great. Yeah, it's weird how 7 Remake and Rebirth nail like character interactions and character dynamics so well, and then flub the question of like, what is the nature of reality?
Yes,
what just happens? What is happening right now?
I felt like that ending really impacted the emotional resonance of that climax at the end of what you're seeing. And it ruined it for me because instead of feeling either sad or maybe a little happy or whatever, I was just like, what did just happen? What did I just see? And why am I spending more time questioning that than actually wrangling with how I feel about what just happened on screen? And it was really annoying. At least like all the other characters though, like the cast of 7 is one of my all-time favorite casts of any game. I think every single character has an awesome character design, super cool personalities. So at least, the game has that and much more going for it, but that ending was just...
When you guys talk about it, part of me wishes you could play both Remake and Rebirth and then the third one that comes out.
Yeah.
Let's say you played both of them or all three of them, and Final Fantasy VII, the original, didn't exist. Like, you never played it. You had no type of, influence there, right? Because obviously there's an influence. You played the original. Both of you did.
Yeah.
So I wonder if anything would change if you didn't know. You know what I'm saying?
I think you're right, Dom, that if you don't have the baggage of the original game hanging over you, it's just like playing any other game for the first time. Like me playing Rise of the Ronin for the first time or whatever. Yeah, it's both a gift and a curse for the 7 remake trilogy. Is that you have a bunch of people like me and Zach, but especially people who played, because I played it later on in my life, but the people especially who played it when it came out, they have really, really high expectations. It would be no different than if they tried to remake Ocarina. Like, you're going to have the baggage of Ocarina hanging over it always.
True.
So
I think there's something to what you're saying. Like, I played Witcher 3 before I played the other 2 Witcher games, and I didn't have some old school Witcher fans who'd been reading from the books didn't necessarily like every aspect of the way the games played out, And so I was in the position of just being able to take Witcher 3 for what it is. I think that can help you enjoy something more, to take it on its own terms. But Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth are I think there are parts of them that just would not make sense. I mean, they're clearly things we think don't make sense even with the context, but they're still premised on you knowing the story before. Like the stuff they do at the Forgotten Capital at the end of Rebirth is done kind of in conversation with your memories of what happens in that part of the game in the original. And so they don't want the game does not want to or even try to stand on its own in that way. It's meant to be kind of this Ouroboros eating its own tail, referring back to how you remember things being and looping around on itself.
Well, Zach, good segue into what you've been playing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I did play Rebirth. I think the last time we recorded, I had mentioned that I was trying to, like an idiot, simultaneously juggle Baldur's Gate 3, Pathfinder Kingmaker, and the original Baldur's Gate, 3 different Dungeons and Dragons based CRPGs. I did not stick with that much longer. I just kind of OD'd on CRPGs. And then, yeah, the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth came out. We have the one PS5, so I was kind of waiting my turn.
Oh, I would play oftentimes into the night. I'd be up till 2, 3 a.m. because Zach had been playing in the evenings.
Yeah, but we were tagging back and forth.
Yeah.
As is often the case with these games that we're both playing, I did a lot more side content than Angie did. I'm kind of on the same page with Angie when it comes to the story stuff, although I think I'm not as bothered by it. I still think the things that Angie thinks are mistakes, I tend to think are also mistakes. But I got really into the combat of Rebirth. I think it's very good. Even compared to Remake, which I did like and came to enjoy more when I replayed it. Both the first playthrough of Rebirth and then the New Game Plus hard mode, there's a lot of creativity and expression baked into the combat system because you have so many different characters you can control. They have a lot of abilities that it really feels like you can play Yuffie, for example, several different ways. And that's just one of 7 characters that you can control when you're playing the game. That's a lot. And that's even before considering that you're meant to be switching between a deck of 3 different characters. And those characters also interact with each other. And they have these special tag team synergy moves, synergy special attacks, but also these little quick little one-off moves that they can do. I think they did a great job rounding out the kits of characters that needed a little bit here and there. Tifa was already my favorite in Remake, but her glaring weakness in Remake is she doesn't really have a good answer against aerial enemies. And in this one, they gave her a special ability. I forget what it's called. You get it from her second pair of gloves. It's like some kind of like wind vortex that yanks an enemy down out of the air. That's really cool because it brings it down to her level. And then they also give her like a synergy move. Like if you do like a tag team attack with like Cloud or other characters, after that tag team move is over, Tifa is in the air, like jump kicking and attacking the enemy. So it's cool. They use it like as a way to like incentivize using the synergy attack system while also using it as an opportunity to round out Tifa's skill set. But I think I got some mixed feelings about Cloud because I kind of liked how stationary he is in Remake. I think that's interesting. He's like, they added a lot of mobility to him in Rebirth that I kind of think he's like too good at everything to a little degree. But I think it's really fun. You have a lot of freedom and a lot of abilities to do really interesting exploits with different characters. Yuffie, for example, has a way to generate a lot of ATB really quickly with some setups. And that also ends up addressing, to some degree, some complaints I had about Remake, where I felt like the combat felt pretty good up until you ran out of juice. Like if you found yourself kind of like out of ATB, you were kind of screwed and ended up in like a death loop trying to recover from that. And I don't think that's nearly as much of a problem in Rebirth. I think the open world stuff in Rebirth is not like stellar, but there's enough variety in the mini games that I was still having a lot of fun all the way through when I was playing. I didn't finish that second playthrough. The same thing happened when I played Remake, actually, so maybe I'll go back to Rebirth at some point. I thought I was going to like platinum Rebirth. I was enjoying it so much, but some of the late game combat Chadley challenges are just so brutal. It's like 25 straight minutes of like 10 fights in a row. And it's just so much. It's so much.
And just like, man, just get rid of Chadley. Get rid of the stupid AI that they introduced. The girl, just awful. Honestly, like the Chadley stuff is part of the reason why I haven't engaged with the side content quite as much. I can't stand him.
Yeah.
That's a real name.
Yeah, it's a real name.
Yeah, Chadley. I am really looking forward to Vincent and Sid finally being playable. I can't wait to see how they fight. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. So far, Jack from Stranger Paradise is my favorite controllable Dragoon fighter in a Final Fantasy game, but hopefully Sid steps up.
Yeah. I'm super interested to see that because it's because of his costume and what he wears, you don't really think of him as being a Dragoon, but, you know, makes sense. And then Vincent is probably will have some, you know, he's obviously going to have his shooting mechanics. And so I guess he'll be kind of like Barrett, like similar to Barrett in that way. But also, you know, he's got his transformative abilities and who knows what else they're going to do with him. So,
yeah, should be cool. I could keep talking about Rebirth, but I won't. Except I'll say that people on the internet were whining way too much about the mini games. They're fine. They're not all perfect. They're fine.
Yeah, they're fine.
I played the Final Fantasy 16 DLC.
Yeah, I still got to get to that.
Yeah, so I won't get into story spoilers. I will say that if you had complaints about where the story landed in the original game, you will probably still have those complaints following the DLC. And like the DLC, like manages to double down on the base game's ending, which is to say it provides metaphors that can be interpreted in different ways. So there is that. But the combat content in the DLC, the second DLC in particular, the Rising Tide, is the best the game has had. There's a major dungeon in the DLC, which is, I think, easily my favorite dungeon to play through in the game. It has the most... I don't think I'd be spoiling to say you fight Leviathan. The fight against Leviathan is the most fully fleshed out icon versus icon fight mechanically. Like you really have to use all of Ifrit's toolkit. But there's a human fight boss, like a human form Clive fight in particular, and the boss he fights against is, I think, easily the best fight in all of 16. It's like really well done. It reminded me in some ways of boss design from Final Fantasy 14 in a good way, like intricacies of like patterns on the ground and things like that.
Okay.
It was really good. I would definitely recommend it to anyone who enjoyed 16, but it is by design not essential. You need to consider the story of 16 like complete as it is.
Okay.
I've been working on a replay of Dragon Warrior 3 on the NES. I won't say a ton about it. I think it's an all-time great RPG. it's really stripped down because of its age. I guess not stripped down. It hadn't been like built up with all of how the genre has changed over time, but all the fundamentals that need to be there are there. It's a really well-paced, tight, fun game. I played Pepper Grinder. I mentioned looking forward to that last time we recorded. That came out. I played that on Switch. It is kind of interesting in that it kind of feels like it's taking some influence from games like Celeste and Super Meat Boy. Like, it's not a full-on precision platformer like that, but it kind of feels a little more challenging and engaging like that. The platforming wouldn't be that hard in Pepper Grinder, except it involves the main character kind of like burrowing at high speeds through the earth, and then they like fly out of the earth where they emerge. And then there's like a natural arc based on how they emerge from the earth, and then you hopefully land in the right spot. And there's some other mechanics like that, but you're kind of like, it's like a precision platformer, but you're steering. And the steering, at least with the Switch Lite analog stick, feels a little, like it felt like a little bit of a struggle to make my character go where I wanted them to go. Like I could do it, but it wasn't like a given, it wasn't automatic. And so I was kind of like, yeah, it takes a while to get used to. And it ended up, I think, being a good game, but a somewhat slight game. To really feel like you were going to get your money's worth, I think you'd need to go and do like the speed runs and stuff. And then I played the remake of Braid Anniversary Edition. That one I think is really good. I actually, one of the things that was kind of interesting about revisiting Braid, because I played it back during its original, summer of Xbox Live Arcade release, and I didn't know how well it was going to hold up, because I don't know how a bunch of the games from that era would hold up. Like, I remember people being excited about like Castle Crashers, for instance, but I actually don't know if Castle Crashers is a particularly good beat 'em up, or if it's just like it was a co-op game that people liked well enough that was on Xbox at the time. Yeah. And so I didn't really know if Braid would like hold up, and it does. Like, it's a puzzle game that is kind of like short and sweet. Every screen in that game is like an interesting conceptual challenge. It's a kind of a brain buster. And then the remake also does some really interesting stuff with commentary tracks that I hadn't seen before. Like, there aren't that many games that have developer commentary in them, but Braid in particular has not only developer commentary, but like developer talking to their friends who had nothing to do with working on the game, just kind of like talking about life or what drives them. And there are like interviews with players who played the original version of the game too. So like that was all a pretty interesting experience.
Don't leave out the highlight of the letter that you were sent.
Oh, I don't remember the letter, but that's okay. And the one other thing...
What was his name? Jonathan Blow, right?
Uh-huh.
He specifically sent a letter to the reviewers to help them to properly contextualize the game as they went into the review. I have never seen that, because I got the review key to give to Zach, and when I saw it, I was like, I don't think I've ever seen directly from the developer himself, which is in tune with his past treatment of Braid, let's just say.
I will admit that I find Jonathan Blow charming in how, I don't know how to put it. He's like it seems like a very idiosyncratic, easy to dislike person who believes very strongly in what he does. And I appreciate that he's kind of this uncompromising presence when it comes to like what his preferences are in game design and what he thinks is the right way to do things. I appreciate that he's got his own distinct voice. The one other game I've played, I'm not counting Final Fantasy XIV because I am doing some kind of ramp up for the expansion that comes out in a month, is...
And we both did the 16.
Well, stuff. Sure. We both got our Clive outfits during the 16 crossover.
And Torgal mounts.
Uh-huh, yeah. The one other game that I'm playing now is a shmup called Devil Blade Reboot, which I was only even aware of for about a month before its release. I just saw like screenshots and GIFs of it on Twitter, and I was like, that looks beautiful. It looks like a mid-90s shoot-'em-up arcade game. It's basically what it is. Turns out, actually, it's a solo developer, Shigetake, I think he goes by, who actually, at least used to, maybe still does work for Vanillaware. Did like character designs and food designs for Dragon's Crown and 13 Sentinels, Unicorn Overlord, etc. But it's basically just a really well-made, fast-paced kind of console-style shoot-'em-up that has really good difficulty ramping as you move from like easy to normal. So I've just been working on learning to do the normal stages without dying right now. Easy was actually really easy. I think this would be like a really good introductory shmup for somebody.
What's the title again?
Devil Blade Reboot, because there was like a 1996 version of it called Devil Blade, and this is like a complete like retooling, reimagining. I looked at the original a little bit. It's substantially different. It's not just like a new coat of paint. But yeah, it's very good. Even just the way it uses like the bomb is interesting. And a lot of shooting games, you have like your regular shot, sometimes different regular shots, and a bomb, and the bomb does damage to things around you, but it usually also can be used defensively. So like if you're gonna get hit and die, and you fire your bomb, the bomb will destroy the bullets around you. So you have to learn to use it preemptively. In Devil Blade, on easy mode, if you get hit, like you would die, but you have a bomb in stock, the game will just fire the bomb for you to say like we'll just consider that like this bomb spent. So it kind of like is teaching you should have used a bomb there. You should have used a bomb there. And then on normal mode, when you use a bomb, you have to choose to use it, but you also get a one-time shield as an incentive. So like you would die if you got hit. You use the bomb, it clears out what would have killed you, and then also gives you a shield that you can spend on the next time you get hit. So it's doing a good job of like on-ramping players and being like, this is what bombs are for, this is how you use them, please practice using them. And that kind of design, even like the formations in which the enemies fly in onto the screen are also like very good at like, it's very easy for me as someone who hasn't played a shmup in a long time to come in and be like, okay, so I want to be over there when that wave comes in, and then I want to be over there the next time. And so like, it does a good job of teaching you how to play it more than most shmups, I think. Yeah, very good. That's the last thing I got.
All right. Well, we've all been, I think, pretty busy.
Yep.
You've been pretty busy. I think this is a good time to move on to just talking about some current events kind of stuff. And, I mean, there's been a lot going on, but we'll just hone in on, in particular, the layoffs and the studio closures that have been going on in the industry. So Zach and I both work in tech. We are, we're both no strangers to layoffs. Me in particular, I've been laid off 4 times. And so this news kind of, it hits close to home for me because I know how, at least to some degree, how these people are feeling about suddenly losing their jobs. And it sucks. And I feel like there's a lot of stigma too around getting laid off. A lot of people don't want to say it. They're embarrassed by it. And I don't feel like they should be embarrassed by it. So I do think that it's actually a good thing that these layoffs, I mean, it would be hard for them to not be in the spotlight just given how big a lot of these studios are. But I also think it's a good thing that a lot of people are talking about it openly. On LinkedIn, especially, I have a lot of people that are in my, in my feed, connections, second and third connections, even some first connections. They're talking about it because they've been impacted by it. So I've been seeing a lot of it firsthand as all of these events have been unfolding. And this has been going on for a while now, since at least last year, but has really ramped up this year. But just to run through some of the list of the companies that have had major layoffs, just in case you haven't really been paying attention, or it's kind of been in your periphery, but you haven't really truly been paying attention. Embracer Group, Unity, Microsoft, EA, Sony, Epic, Take-Two, Riot, Twitch, Playtika, Sega, Niantic, Ubisoft, Amazon Games, Discord, Gameloft, Wildlife Studios, Digital Bros, Pixelberry Studios, Thunderful Group, CD Projekt, Phoenix Labs, Supermassive Games, Rycon Games, NCSoft West, and Netmarble have all had major layoffs. The smallest number, which is Netmarble at the bottom, and NCSoft West and Rycon Games, all at 70. To kind of contextualize.
Is that 70 people?
70 people.
But like within the context of Rycon, I think it was like 80% of Rycon got laid off.
And that's what's making a lot. That's why this is so eye-opening, is because for these smaller studios, that's almost the entirety of the studio. Whereas like once you get all the way up to Embracer Group, which has had the largest number, that's 4,532. So thousands of people at this point, especially if you count, including last year's numbers, thousands of people have been laid off in this industry. And then you have a bunch of studios that have closed, like Alpha Dog Games, Arcane Austin, and so on and so on. Of course, the one that has been talked about a lot was Tango. And in particular, the treatment of Tango and the comments that were made by Microsoft after they closed it. Closed it. For anyone that's not familiar with Tango, they made what's the name of that game, Dom, that you loved?
Hi-Fi Rush.
Yeah, Hi-Fi Rush, which was extremely successful, very popular. They closed Tango, and they come out and they're like, yeah, we need smaller studios that are making like award-winning games. And everyone was like, well, that's what you just closed with Tango. So what's up? What's going on here? So there's a lot of questions right now about like what's going on with the industry. Are we seeing is this like a turning point? And if it is, what is that turning point? Is this a video game crash? Is this like as bad as what we saw in the 80s? Will it be that bad? There's a lot of questions right now. So just interested in your guys' thoughts on this.
Well, I have a couple of thoughts. First, at GDC this past year, there's a ton of emphasis on AI. And, in fairness to the companies that were there showing off stuff, I know many of them are just like, well, I'm giving you a tool. It's a tool that we're giving you. And, it's to be used as a tool. But there's a difference between the intent that those companies have versus what these studios and publishers all have in their heads, which is, well, it's a tool, but it's also a way for us to cut jobs. So, for example, one piece of software that I saw was you could type in prompts and say, I want a warrior. And then the AI software will 3D render a warrior for you. And then you can just go through and fine tune and say, well, I want him tall. I want him in black armor. I want this and that. Until you get the 3D model that you want. But then it takes it a step further and it'll rig it and animate it for you using AI as well. Just completely eliminating the need for somebody who can 3D model and somebody who can rig and animate that model. Now, to be fair, smaller studios can benefit from this kind of thing because it's like, well, maybe we're just two people and we can't afford to have somebody do this or that and on and on. But the reality is larger companies are going to look at that same software and say, well, what do we need a bunch of people on staff doing all that and we're paying for them and everything that comes with that when we can just dump those jobs by incorporating this AI. And it's in every facet of game design. It's in 3D modeling, it's in rigging and animation, it's in, they're even using it to eliminate traditional playtesting roles. Another piece of software was talking about, if you have 5 different builds of your game across 5 different platforms, our AI will playtest it for you. And so the only thing you need a human left for is to go through the logs to see what's busted, and then also to tell you if it's actually fun, because the AI can't quite do that yet. So I think that some of these layoffs are probably prepping for the implementation of more AI. So it's like, you get rid of these bodies because then you're able to replace them with software.
And just to say something to that, Robert, and it's not even just on the game development side within these development houses. You also have marketers, for example, that get displaced. And that's what I do. I'm a content marketer. I was in PR before that. And writers, we're being displaced with things like ChatGPT. And without using any names, I worked for a company where the head of marketing asked all of us, how were we going to implement ChatGPT? And this was last year when ChatGPT, whatever it was, version 3.0 or whatever, came out. And everybody was just drooling over it. And I was very honest with him. And I said, I'm not really keen on introducing AI into my workflow because I really don't want to introduce my own obsolescence. And he straight up was like, oh, no, we would never do that. We're not going to replace you with it. And then however many months later, the company ended up having their first round of layoffs, and they've had more since. And I was one of the first on the chopping block. And I was on a team of 2 in terms of what I do. And so I think part of the thought process there may have been, and I don't know for sure, supplement my work with AI, which you can't do because you can't do the quality of work that I do with ChatGPT. But a lot of companies are like, it's fine. We'll settle for lesser quality work if that means not having to pay somebody to do it and not having to pay them benefits. And that's what's going on in the gaming world as well. Like I said, it's all tech. We're in tech. And this idea that you can just replace a person with AI is really dangerous. But I think that's what we're seeing throughout these dev studios, not even just on the dev side.
I feel like this is a tide that can be stemmed but not reversed or stopped. You know, like there is some kind of, especially from like, say, the community of like artists on Twitter, a lot of outrage when it comes to like finding out something was made with AI. But like, you know, you can apply PR pressure to, I don't know, Microsoft to some degree, but I don't have any faith that that would work for like mobile games. Like nobody really cares, right? Mobile games just rake in the big bucks and that's fine. So you're going to get to a point where mobile games, if nothing else, are going to be completely dominated by AI processes. And then it's just a matter of like, I mean, we already have the question of like, can console games compete, right? Because the other stuff that's been going on is like people talking about the sustainability of console games, right? Or like AAA games more specifically. And like if AAA game manufacturers do choose to forego the cost savings they get from using AI, and of course that comes along with probable layoffs, right? If they forego that, then where are they cutting costs? Or if they're not, can they stay in business, you know?
Well, it's interesting because in previous installments of our show, I've talked about things like the subscription services and how whether or not they work out in the long term is kind of a question mark. So if you look broadly across, entertainment as a whole, Disney Plus finally turned a profit to the tune of $47 million, but the platform had already lost $587 million a year prior. And then you look at the production of content for the platform, $47 million is about the cost of 2 episodes of She-Hulk, right? So that's expensive. And then other similar services like Max, which is owned by Warner Brothers, that lost 700,000 subscribers. Peacock dropped $825 million in its last quarter of 2023. So you're seeing that creeping into what's going on with gaming a little bit. I think Microsoft's probably the biggest example of this not panning out the way they want. By all accounts, it doesn't really look like, for example, Nintendo's having issues with Switch Online, which is partially because Nintendo doesn't really tether any of its AAA releases to the service. So, like, if Tears of the Kingdom comes out, you've got to go spend $70 on it. It's not included in, like, the expansion pack. Sony... Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think Sony really does any day and date on PlayStation Plus, does it? Like if a big game comes out, I don't think it comes out the same day.
No.
I can't think of anything.
But there's been a couple releases like Sea of Stars, but that's still, I mean...
Yeah. But like Spider-Man 2, for example, was not on PS Plus. But you look at Microsoft and what they're doing, and they banked hugely on Game Pass. And the amount of money that they need... So it breaks down to, I think some court documents had leaked, and in those documents, it turns out that it's like $10 per user is generated for subscribers to Game Pass. So like they would need subscriber numbers like in the hundreds of millions for it to be like self-sustaining and to handle, the endless, hey, Starfield came out and it's day and date on Game Pass instead of you go and spend $70 on it. But it's also tethered into the monetization schemes that the industry wants, which is just the endless free-to-play with microtransactions and DLC and season passes. Assassin's Creed Shadows has the $120 version that you can buy, and there's a couple others. I think Star Wars Outlaws is similar, both Ubisoft. So I think you're also seeing issues in the industry with companies that are trying to come up with these new monetization efforts that just aren't really working. I mean, even Goldilocks scenarios like Fortnite. Fortnite's one of the most played things, right, on the planet, full of microtransactions. And I believe Epic was saying that they're having a little bit of money issues. I remember there was something connected with Epic and not pulling in as much cash as they would want. And it's like, so you have Unreal Engine, which like half the industry makes games on, and you have Fortnite, and you're still not good to go. And we're just seeing this perpetually everywhere. It's like, oh, this is failing and that is failing. It's like, well, what are you guys doing? I mean, this, for one thing, I think the endless pursuit of the live service game, and, it's going to have all these microtransactions, and it's going to be this, and it's going to be that. You're just not seeing it pan out. Sony just announced Concord, I think is the name of the game. It's another like hero shooter. It's supposed to be like Overwatch. I'm looking at it and I'm like, this looks completely uninteresting. I have no interest in playing this. But I'm sure they're hoping, oh yeah, we're hoping this will become, like Overwatch and it's going to have this huge fan base. And it's like, who wouldn't want that? I mean, I get it. Like, everybody would love to have a Fortnite in their roster. But there's just so many of these companies that are trying to do it. It's like, you're not going to make it happen, man. It's like, there's only so much room for all of you. And I think this is also leading to the layoffs. It's just this kind of... It's this insistence that there's something new on the horizon. There's going to be new ways of this, new ways of playing and new ways of, the Ubisoft, the head of, I think, their subscription services, right? With the now infamous, you're not going to own your games. And those games will always be there. And then I think they axed something within like a month of him saying that was removed from people's downloads. But anyway, they just keep insisting that there's this new thing coming. And it never is. It's like, no, why don't you make a good game? You want to charge me $60, $70 for it, fine, but I'll give you the $60 to $70, and let's make that paradigm work. It's like all the other ones where you just happen to make it work, like a Fortnite or whatever, good, fine, have fun with that. But most of you aren't going to get that, and it's impacting workers. We're seeing all these layoffs.
I think also, too, there's just, obviously there are, like, inexplicable things, like... what happened with Hi-Fi Rush and Tango. Like, why would you close that studio when it made Hi-Fi Rush and that was such a well-loved, well-received game? But then, there have been a lot of bombs and a lot of stinkers and a lot of games that they've just kind of been shoving onto people that they're just not resonating with players. They're just not very good. And these are games that have a ton of either hype or development resources behind them, like Suicide Squad, Forspoken, et cetera, et cetera. And I think part of the problem is that these AAA studios are not quite giving people what they want. They're shoving onto the player, trying to shove onto the player the things that really nobody asked for, or maybe people were looking forward to it, and then it just ends up not being what they thought it would be. But I think that's part of the problem too, is just refusing to give the player what they want, trying to push onto the player what they would like the player to want, and that's a huge issue for longevity of this medium. You can't keep pushing, frankly, garbage onto people and then expecting them to pay $60, $70 a pop.
Suicide Squad is a perfect example of that, because after that game failed, the Warner Brothers people were talking about, so single player game, Hogwarts Legacy, does great. I think it was the best-selling game of 2023. Suicide Squad comes out, bombs. They come back, and their response is, we really want to make a live service game that works. It's like, okay, so you had the top selling game, which was single player, was not microtransaction based. But instead of learning the right lesson from the situation, they're like, well, how do we flip-flop Suicide Squad but into the Harry Potter game? Mm-hmm. And maybe there's a million different wands you can buy with real money and different robes, and you can get this and that, and there's new story content, and it's just on. And it's just like, to Angie's point, they're telling you, you want this. Mm-hmm. And repeatedly they're being shown, no, I don't, with exceptions, because I'm willing to do it for, a Fortnite, or I'm willing to do it for a Roblox or whatever. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, most games, there's no room for it or nobody wants it. And it's a refusal. It is just, no, we're going to beat this message over your head until you believe it. Mm-hmm. And they don't seem to believe their bank accounts when they see big zeros, like with Suicide Squad. Yeah. It's like, when is it going to sink in? You're not going to bully us. You're not going to get your way here.
And, I mean, like, what's going on with, or what was happening with Helldivers 2 for a minute. Everybody loves that game. It's fantastic. Then Sony comes in and they're like, oh, but you need to have an account with us now. For safety reasons and whatever else. And it's like, why are you trying to mess with a good thing?
That was for Steam players, right?
Yeah.
Or PC players?
It was like, if you want to keep playing on, Steam or PC, you have to have a Sony account.
They X that quick, though.
They did. Yeah. And I think that's a good example of what players need to do and keep doing, is to be vocal. I mean, we saw this also with like Stellar Blade and the censorship of one of Eve's costumes. Now, that costume, they did not remove that censorship, but then they go and add a couple more costumes that are anything but modest. And I feel like that level of insistence of like, no, we're going to be vocal about what we want because we're tired of you giving us trash in the name of greed. I think that needs to be the norm moving forward.
With the Helldivers thing, though, Sony reversed course on the PSN requirement. Mm-hmm. And because Ghost of Tsushima is mostly single player. Ghost of Tsushima on PC doesn't have a PSN requirement now, except for the multiplayer. But they've also announced that God of War Ragnarok, when it comes to PC, will require PSN. So this is something that they're like, let's wait till people aren't mad at us anymore. Like, you've seen this strategy over and over. Let's wait till they're not mad at us anymore, and then we'll try it again.
In fact, I think they said that they noticed when Helldivers, that whole controversy happened, like it was like 159 countries or something suddenly couldn't access the game, and they I'm going to butcher this, but basically that country list hasn't changed, and they think it was an anticipation of what they're going to do with what was the game you just said, Zach? Was it God of War?
Ragnarok,
yeah. The same country list is in effect because they were like, well, we're not going to change this. So when God of War comes out, we don't want to hear complaints like, oh, now these countries don't have access. It's like, no, this is how it's going to be.
Yeah. Well,
it's like the industry's in this strange combative state with its own fans in a way. It's either berating fans for not liking certain changes to content or certain content in general, or it's hostile in a different way where it's like, we're just going to constantly try to panhandle you. And it's just like, oh, you spent $120 on the game? Cool. Guess what? There's also still microtransactions in it. So now we're going to get you for 150,
God,
180.
Like the new Star Wars game that's coming out where it's like play 5 days early or something for, was it like 130 or 120? And I'm like,
well, it's on different parts of the tier, but yes, with each one, it's like you get 3 day early access.
And I think that they might try and dangle like an extra costume or something in your face, which they'll probably just end up selling later down the line anyway. But and people pay for this, and like, to each their own. Everybody gets different stuff out of games, but I just cannot imagine doing that. And the fact that it's even a thing, it's again, just greed is the name of the game now. No pun intended.
You know what Gabe Newell used to say? That piracy is a service problem. And like, people have talked about this, like with DRM, that says like you can only install a game on like 3 or 5 machines ever. Like that's a thing on PC to like try and combat piracy. They were like, well, every time you change the hardware configuration, that counts as a fresh install, and we don't let the game install more than this many times because we assume you're sharing it with other people, basically. Okay. Or like, a lot of the like more invasive DRM stuff basically means that people who are law-abiding customers who are doing the honest best to like pay for the product are getting a worse product than people who just log on to the Pirate Bay and get a cracked copy.
Yeah, I think we all share similar thoughts on this. The first thing that came to mind was AI before Robert chimed in. I was also thinking, though, you were reading off those, the list of all those layoffs, and then you think about the math, right? Like, how many people got laid off at Microsoft, for example? Do you recall?
Yeah. Give me 1 second. Next year, Microsoft was 2,230.
So the average Microsoft employee, lowball, right, makes 100K.
Yeah, let's say 120.
120. Yeah. Okay. So, you're talking money, when these companies lay them off.
Oh, yeah.
And like you said it perfectly, I think. It's like the company is willing to pay less people to get work that may not be as good as a human, but it's passable and get the job done. Yeah. And they can save, $240 million plus benefits.
And the most insulting thing about that, Don, is that a lot of the times the board of those companies will then turn to the CEO and give him let's say a $10 million kickback for all that money that you saved. Right. It's just like, it's deeply insulting. And
but with the advancement of AI and then, these, the advancement of AI and then these engines are just getting more and more advanced. I mean, they're going to get the same quality of work with half the staff.
Yeah. I mean,
it's a tough spot. There's layers to it, right?
And even artists are feeling it. And that's one thing that, people would say, like, oh, you're never going to replace an artist. And you can't get some. No, it's like, no, they found a way to do that
that's
too.
That's what Robert was saying with that new program.
Yeah. I mean,
crazy.
Even, and like Robert can talk to this point to death, but even in the comics industry, people that have had controversies about using these like AI renderings, just pop it into one of those art AIs and be like, oh, make a drawing of, I don't know, like a guy with a sword. But people can tell, though. They can tell that it's AI. But then for the company, it's like, well, it's good enough, right? That looks like kind of like, so-and-so's art. That works.
Well, this is the thing that is frustrating is you kind of saw this as the internet became more prevalent, and you don't see it as much anymore, I've noticed. But like Japan would get an exclusive Nintendo this, like it's a variant of the Game Boy that's only in Japan, or it's a whatever thing, right? Well, as time is going by and we're becoming more and more interconnected, more than ever, people are realizing, wait, they got what? We didn't get this, we didn't get that. And so, these companies start to hear it. And so they start realizing, oh, they're kind of becoming more savvy to, we're doing this and we're doing that. It's the same thing with this. It's like, we know what you're doing. Like, there's no mystery here. Now, I think the average person just doesn't care, right? Like, the average person who's going into a GameStop probably doesn't even know half the studios that make their games. But a lot of people are aware of this and are talking about it on things like social media. And so it's such a bad look for the industry when they're doing all these layoffs. And, like, take the Microsoft example, right? So Booty goes and he's talking to his crowd of people and says, so we need to make these games that are like small critical darlings. And it's like, we know what you just did.
Yeah.
You just shut down Tango, which gave you the exact thing you're describing. And then I think within a week of that, they started a new studio at Activision. I forget what the hell they call it. And it's like, so wait, so you just shuttered Tango. Now you've started a new studio in Activision, and you're just sitting there looking at it, and you're like, it doesn't make any sense. And so somebody in the inside will tell you, well, no, it happened because of It's like, it doesn't change the fact that from the outside looking in, consumers see you and see a bunch of cheapskates. We see cheap executives that don't want to pay for labor, that want to find any way they can to cut people off. We already know what they do with the people that work there. Go read a Jason Schreier book.
Yep.
You hear infinitely about we don't get healthcare. It's like these multi-million-dollar companies, they're making the games for you, and these workers don't get something as basic as the ability to go to the doctor.
Well,
and it just keeps going. It's like, and so we're talking about it, and then the other thing that frustrates is that you get that sense of you don't even get to talk about it, because these companies will do things like set up bot farms. And so they'll go and they'll pump up their own work on like Twitter or whatever, where it's like all of a sudden these dummy accounts are saying, oh yeah, did you see that $120 promo or that special bundle for Star Wars Outlaws? I'm totally going to get that. It's not even a person. It's a robot. It's a bot. But why do they do it? Because it creates fake interest. And so if you were somebody who was going to sit and say, this is garbage, I don't want to spend $120 on Star Wars Outlaws, but now you see 10 posts of people saying, I'm down for this, I'm going to go buy it, you psychologically are like, I don't know if I want to post that now. It looks like most people actually want to buy the $120 thing. Maybe I want to buy it now too. This is legit what's happening. And so, it's just so frustrating.
To a couple things you just said too. And again, you see this in tech at large and not just within gaming. But they shut down Tango. They lay off all these people. Then in Activision's case, they start a new studio. And you have this question of, well, did you offer jobs to of the laid off? Did you offer them jobs at this new studio you just opened, or a new studio you will open, or are you hiring outside labor? And the answer is usually the latter. And again, you see this in tech companies, like tech startups, for example, where they lay off a bunch of people, and usually they were well compensated and they had benefits. And then when they inevitably need, say, a copywriter because they laid off their content marketer 2 or 3 months ago, and they're like, oh shit, we actually need somebody that knows how to write. Let's get a contractor, and we can pay them cheaper. They're not on salary. They're usually hourly, and they will not get benefits. And that happens a lot too in gaming. It's like, let's hire a contractor XYZ, title X, title Y. So that way we don't have to pay them benefits. We can get them at a cheaper cost. And I've also noticed something. I was just reading a post about this on LinkedIn yesterday morning, I think. Someone was complaining about the lack of junior level jobs in the industry now, because they're not wanting to hire junior people. This is also happening in tech at large. I was having a conversation about even my industry where, when I came into content marketing, I came in from PR. I had 0 content marketing experience. It was just that my skills were transferable to that role. But I was entry level. I had zero, like if it was for a job listing, they'll put like, 1 year of experience, 5 years. I had 0 years of experience. But my hiring manager at my first content marketing role gave me a shot, and I was able to build a career. These people who are wanting to enter the industry now, they don't have that shot, because a lot of these jobs, whether in gaming or tech at large, it's like we want somebody who they're not even settling for, and I'm settling in quotes, a bachelor's degree anymore. Now they're wanting people that have master's degrees. And then the master's degree has to be in a super specific thing. Like, I majored in English Lit. I didn't major in marketing. But now it's like, oh, well, we want you to have like, say a master's in marketing. And you have to have like 8 to 10 to 15 years of experience. And so it's like, well, what's going on here? Like we're basically just shutting the door behind us in this industry. And now all these people who want to get in and have an opportunity can't. What are we doing?
I mean, the fundamental issue is that changes in like interest rates and things like that mean that it's a lot harder for companies to get cheap money. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of like belt tightening that plays out in different ways, mm-hmm. right? But like that belt tightening means companies are like cutting back or not pursuing projects that they would have pursued otherwise, which means fewer seats in the game of musical chairs, mm-hmm. right? And so from a certain point of view, it makes sense that companies would, like, if they're able to hire people who have 5 years of experience, why would they hire people with 0 years of experience, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. And it's just...
But now, because it's an employer's market and there's always going to be someone better than you, this is why the market is so unbelievably awful right now. I mean, it took me... let's see, October. It took me 7 months. 7 months to get another job after my last layoff, and it took me 5 when I got laid off in 2020. I didn't expect it to be even worse this time, and part of the reason is because, as I said, it's an employer's market, and so I got to a bunch of final round, where I was like one of say 3 candidates left, but somebody maybe had 8 years of experience to my 6, or somebody worked at one more larger company than I did, or whatever that case might be. They're looking for those perfect unicorn candidates, which is irritating. It's why a lot of these job listings stay open for months and months and months at a time and never get filled, even though there are plenty of qualified people to fill them. But gaming is experiencing this even more so than just tech in general, and tech at large. And it's pretty scary, because it's like, hey, once people start retiring, once people start exiting the industry, you're going to have this brain drain, where it's just like all of these really good qualified people are going, but because you shut the door behind us and junior people weren't allowed in, well, now what do we do? And it's just...
Well, another problem too is that it impacts outside of the industry directly. Things that are offshoots of it get impacted as well. Now, this is a physical media thing, but still, GameStop Q1 sales dropped 28%, which isn't good. But part of that could be, well, I don't want to play the games you're making, right? Mm-hmm. So we have a quality problem, which seems to kind of be creeping in. Look at Justice League. That's a good example. I'm not going to speak to the competency of like the gameplay, but like just in terms of like people didn't like the game, and they also didn't like the portrayal of the characters.
Dude, you said Justice League? Do you mean Suicide Squad?
Suicide Squad, kill the Justice League. And then IGN scoops in via what's the name, Ziff Davis, their parent company, right? But IGN goes and buys up the Gamer Network, and I don't think it has immediately resulted in layoffs, so I might be wrong. I think some people did get laid off kind of quickly. But they bought, it's a ton of websites. It's like everything within that Nintendo Life circle. So Time Extension, Nintendo Life, Push Square, I think is what it's called.
Did
and on and on.
VG 24/7 get bought too, I think?
If it's part of that, then it is.
I think they
Gamesindustry.biz. What else? Eurogamer, Rock Paper Shotgun, Hookshot is the one that owns Time Extension, Nintendo Life, and whatever the PlayStation and Xbox sites. So
that's a lot of sites.
It's a lot of sites, and what's frustrating is, for one thing, they're going to target quote unquote redundancies, and they're going to close down. They're probably going to shut down sites at some point. But then the other issue too kind of goes back to the point I made earlier, which is freedom of discourse and being able to talk and have opinions. Well, you kind of can't help. I'm not saying that they're going to tell anyone, they can't say this or that, but it does become hard as a consumer to step back and say, well, I want to find a review of such and such game. Oh, all of these reviews are coming from websites owned by one company. And that gets tricky. It's like, okay, so, how are you really going to get a diversity of opinion when there's one overlord? And you see this with, I forget the name of the company, but I think The Hollywood Reporter, Variety, and one other site. They're pretty big entertainment sites. They're owned by one company. And so, if you are a media company and you're like, I want some good coverage for whatever it is. Well, a lot of times we call legacy media, like Hollywood Reporter, for example, it's access media, right? Meaning you have access to these big companies. They're going to come to you because you're not a nobody. And they're going to say, hey, you want to see the new show a week early, a month early? And we'll give you a swag bag with some things in it, and you can put it on an Instagram post and whatever. It's like, it's not explicitly being said, but it's like, hopefully you have good things to say because look how we're letting you in early. Well, that same thing happens with the world of gaming. And it's frustrating because it's like, so if something sucks, a website should be able to just say, hey, it sucks. But when you have all of a sudden one person owning all the companies, and maybe somebody's buddy with somebody, well, now you have to worry that 10 outlets are going to give you the same parroted content.
That problem was there even when those 10 outlets were owned by 10 different companies, right? Like, no offense, but this stuff goes for Nintendo Joe too, right? Like, if you wrote something that was like absolutely scathing, it might affect that publisher wanting to send something to you in the future.
Yes, well, two things. I agree. 10 companies, 10 different owners, but it's not better if you condense it to one owner.
No, it's
right?
not better. It's not better.
But in terms of like us, well, I can't speak for myself. I know I'm not the harshest critic, but I think there's a difference between I'm going to tear apart something versus I'm just going to give you my honest opinion. I'm not interested in tearing anybody apart, so I don't do it.
No, I know. And this is not me accusing you. I've heard you talk like off the record about games. You are just as effusive about things in person as you are in print when you are effusive about those things in print. I'm not, not about you.
I've, if anybody's read my detective, was it Chinatown?
Oh, yeah.
Chinatown Detective Agency, I think is what it was called. I eviscerated that game because I felt that it deserved it. Because I feel like if you're going to ask people to spend hard-earned money on a game, you need to come with quality content. Versus like Hello Kitty, it was like that Hello Kitty kart racer game that is extremely rare and valuable now. That game is made for little kids. And so, like, you have to go in when you're reviewing something. You can't just be like, this game sucks. It's super easy. There's blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, yeah, because it's made for, like, 3 to 5-year-olds or 5 to 8-year-olds or whatever. Versus, like, Chinatown Detective Agency, which is supposed to be, you tell, they're trying to be high tone. They're trying to be very, sophisticated in how they're presenting things and talking about political issues and whatever. But it was junk. It was garbage that was buggy and terrible in different ways. And so I'm fine with being very harsh when you need to be, because I didn't care. I didn't care if the dev was going to, and no disrespect to them on the extremely off chance they ever hear this. It wasn't about making fun of them or publicly humiliating them. It's, you are asking people to pay money for this game. You need to give people something worth buying. And when you put out something that buggy and expect people to pay for it, it's insulting.
Well, and in case anyone's forgotten, but like Zach mentioned, it's Nintendo Joe, right? So I run the site. Excuse me. I run the site. Angie and Zach both contribute in terms of writing. I kind of don't care if you want to take access away from me, because it's like my integrity, I guess, is, it's more important. Mm-hmm. For example, when we went to GDC, we made some connections with Nintendo. Mm-hmm. We don't always get review keys from them. In fact, Nintendo directly, we never usually get keys. Nope. But I had gotten in touch with somebody. I was like, hey, it'd be nice if we could start getting some access to review keys from you guys. So we have not gotten a Nintendo game yet, but they did send us Zao, the Metroidvania that came out.
They also sent us Animal Well and Little Kitty Big City. Mm-hmm.
And so, it's nice that they're including us in. But, like, for example, I played Zao, and I thought it was okay. I thought it was, like, worth a C. And if I'm concerned with, like, pleasing them, it's like, well, maybe I should have gave it a B. But I sat and I was like, well, that's pretty generic feeling. Like, it has a good narrative and visual style, but just the pure gameplay felt a little generic. But even to that end, I will be honest. I keep it as honest as I can. There was a lot of talk about Sweet Baby Ink connections with Zao. And I was like, I think it's really disappointing that anyone's throwing that label on here as a negative when I'm sitting and playing it and I'm like, these things people are complaining about, they're not in the game. So like, why is anyone doing a victory lap over Zao potentially not getting sales? Like, what you're saying doesn't even make sense in relation to this game. So, you know, I don't know how that is in terms of other publishers, you know, like Nintendo Life or whoever, but that's how I handle it with us.
Likewise with Peach, you know, I was extremely honest in what I said about Peach. Basically everything I said here and then some I said in my review because I expect more of Nintendo. Nintendo doesn't have an excuse for a lot of its issues. Like, for example, its bugginess. I'm like, this is a first-party title on Switch. Why is there choppiness in the graphics, you know, during the loading screens? It's an extremely simple animation of a curtain that's just supposed to be kind of moving a little bit with like the wind. Yeah. And it's choppy. And I'm like, what is this? You know, I mean, so that on top of all the other things I complain about, I was honest. And yeah, we're Nintendo, Joe, and Nintendo is our focus, but I'm not going to pull my punches because I'm afraid that Nintendo might not like it.
Yeah. The possibility of corruption is kind of baked into a business model that incentivizes day and date releases because it means you're dependent fundamentally on the publishers. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Do you want to move on to?
Yeah, I think that we probably said everything we wanted to say, but yeah, it's definitely a concerning time right now in the industry. But moving on to our topic of the day, I was actually interested in talking about, and to be honest, I cannot remember where I got the inspiration from this. I think I was listening to something and it just kind of popped into my head, but I thought to myself, like, there's a difference between your favorite games that you put on an all-time favorite game list versus the games that really shaped what you like to play. And there could be so many different reasons for that. And those games can come like your favorite games, but they can come at any time. You know, games that maybe you just played a year ago or something like that, versus something that you played a long time ago, maybe during your childhood, that had a lasting impact. So I'm just kind of interested in us discussing the games that had the biggest impact on our gaming tastes. So that could mean like a whole new genre that was opened up to you because of a game. Or maybe like a franchise or a series that you never would have played if you hadn't played, you know, whatever. So just kind of talking about that. I guess maybe I'll kick us off on this one, just both for demonstrative purposes and also just since I'm already talking. Ruiner. So Ruiner, Devolver Games, super quick backstory. I worked for a PR company, worked exclusively with indie video game devs, and they sent me to PAX West in, I think, 2017. And so I was walking the show floor. I had never been able to go with Robert to E3 in the years he went, so this was my first gaming conference.
Could have if you wanted.
Yeah, I mean, I was working. It was hard. Robert was working too, but it was just hard for me to get the time off. But so I'm walking the show floor, and I see the Devolver booth, and I see this game Ruiner. And it's huge, and like the color scheme is red and black, so that spoke to me. And so the art style just blew me away, you know, the key art and stuff like that. And I was like, what is this? And so I walked up and one of the devs was there and she was talking to me about the game. And I was with one of my coworkers and I just asked her if I could play it. And, you know, it's an overhead twin stick shooter. I had not had, I don't think, any experience with that genre before, the twin stick shooter. So it felt a little weird for me. I had to get used to using the two sticks at once. But I had the freedom to demo it for a little longer because the show floor hadn't opened yet. And I just immediately fell in love with this game. And I'm like, this is just so cool. The music is so good. The art style is really good. The protagonist is really cool. He's borderline kind of off-putting with, like, you know, his face covered by a mask, and but like off-putting in a cool way. And I just loved it. And I just knew, like, when this game comes out, I'm getting this game. And I did. And I just love the heck out of Ruiner. If you've never played it, definitely give that game a shot. But I did, and when I was done with it, I was like, I want more of this. Just something about it clicked in my head. I don't really know. It's hard to explain, but it just really worked for me. So then that is an example for me of opening up an entire genre of the overhead twin stick shooter. So from there, I played Hotline Miami, and Hotline Miami. The game is wild. It's a total like fever dream, very violent, hyper violent, just crazy. You know, like the amount of action going on, the sheer number of things you have to pay attention to. Very cool game. I never played the second one. It didn't quite sound as appealing to me as the first, but I wouldn't totally write off trying it one day. But actually, that opened up, and this is a game that I forgot to mention that I have been playing, but it's a good thing I didn't mention it because I'll talk about it now. Ocho. It's spelled OTXO. It's stylized in all caps, and I also reviewed this for Nintendo Joe maybe a month ago. I'll look up the dev information in a minute, but they sent us a review key, and it keeps getting described as like Hotline Miami meets John Wick, and it's all black and white. The only other color is red, so the blood splatter is very pronounced, and it's also hyper violent. Very like strange, also kind of fever dreamish, very weird, kind of a creepy, unsettling sort of environment. Really, really fun. And that one is actually a roguelite. And I've never liked roguelites. It worked for me in this context, and so that may actually have me more open to trying roguelites in the future. But it's got the roguelite elements on top of being the overhead twin stick. So I love that game. I think I gave it an A for Nintendo Joe. So from there, I wanted to actually try Hong Kong Massacre, which came out, I think, a couple of years ago. And I had wanted to try it when I saw the trailer, and I just never jumped onto it. But that's another one that I really want to try. So, from this one game from Ruiner, just unlocked this whole genre for me that I never even thought about trying. And to be honest, I probably would have assumed I wouldn't have liked. But I ended up loving it, and now, when I see twin stick shooters or hear that a game is, I'm like, oh, well, I wonder what it's about. So,
well, I think it's interesting with games. I'll talk about this with the college students I teach. You can't put another person in your shoes in terms of things that you've experienced. So, like, when I will think back on playing something like Mario 64 for the first time, that feeling of just like, wow, like, what is this? Like, I've never played anything like this before. You can't recreate that for somebody else. And when so much time goes by that there is no novelty to 3D and video games anymore, it's a little hard to impart that on someone else.
Yeah, I've talked about, I think, the experience of playing like Mega Man 2 and being just gobsmacked by how large some of the enemy bosses are, completely out of scope with other NES games. But of course, like now, who gives a crap, right? Like if you've played a God of War game, going back to Mega Man 2, the scope of the bosses is not going to register.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, if you think back to like when Mega Man 2 was fresh, that game was constantly being put on lists of like the greatest games ever made. And probably not as much these days, especially with younger journalists. But I'll get to Mario later. This one stands out in my brain, though. I was at college. I think it was my sophomore or junior year. And this guy I was friends with in... what class was it? I think I was taking German for some reason. Don't remember a word of it. But we were in German 1 together. His name was Keith. And Keith was like a total nerd. He was importing Ace Attorney. And he was looking forward to it. And I remember he's describing it to me. And I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? And then eventually it came just legitimately. It was localized, right? And we get Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney, the first game. And DS was fascinating because it had that touch screen. And they talk a lot about the DS being one of the first pieces of consumer hardware to like truly cement the touch screen as like just an everyday thing that you could use and it would be useful and all that other stuff. So I remember there was a lot of novelty to just touching the screen and using it for different games. I don't remember if Cooking Mama had already been out by the time Phoenix Wright came. But for me, it was a novelty in two ways. I had never played a visual novel type of game. Like, I didn't know anything about these sort of, like, adventure games on, like, PC or whatever. So I know it wasn't the first in that regard. But for me, on DS, playing that game, I was just like, wow, so, like, the gameplay is I'm reading. And then I'm, clicking different things and, looking for clues. And it's, like, kind of logic-based, figuring out things in terms of puzzles. It was just so mind-blowing to me. And I wanted more. Like immediately after that, I was just like, there's only one of these? I'm like, how disappointing. So I love the series as a result of it, but it also just opened my eyes to that entire genre of game. So Phoenix Wright is definitely up there for me in terms of being influential.
What about you, Dom?
So when you brought up the question, I thought it was really good because it really made me think, because I could talk for ages about like the nostalgia factor in my top games, you know,
Right.
the Zeldas, Mario's, Pokemon.
Yeah.
You know, I can remember where I was exactly first time playing these games. But I wanted to sort of talk about a couple stories or games that are more recent.
Yeah.
I guess not so recent anymore. It's like a decade ago. But so, God, which one do I start with? Are we going around like...
Yeah.
doing a couple?
You start with one.
Yeah, so I guess around 2012, 2013-ish. I've always been an NBA 2K fan, but I worked at Safeway for like about 10 years. And one of the guys who works there, we ended up becoming like best friends. We're still super tight now. I mean, I was just with him earlier before we podcasted. So we built a relationship, you know, we're good friends, and a lot of it stemmed around our hobbies and video games and going to the gym or whatever. So 2K12, 2K13, it was like a 2-year stint where it was at its peak for me as far as the gameplay and everything. I would play 2K9, 2K10, you know, by myself online, you know, randoms. But once I started playing with his name's Angelo. Once I started playing with him, we would just battle, you know, online quick games, you know, for hours on end. We had similar shifts. I worked 3 to midnight. He was always like the closing person with me. So by the time we got off, we'd either go hit the gym first and then go home, shower, and hop on the game. See you in a couple hours or whatever. So, you know, like literally falling asleep on the mic. And I'm talking about before I could afford a big, heavy, you know, headset. I just had a little mic on talking to him. The speaker's still playing the actual gameplay. So you hear the echo. You know, it wasn't like ghetto or anything. You know, but I mean, it just like little things like that. You know, now, you know, the reason I say peak was because NBA 2K has very much transformed. It's not even the same game, in my opinion. It was all about quick games and just matching up teams. Like we'd put all the teams on the screen and pick random. Like, oh, you're going to be the Pelicans, I'm going to be the Warriors. Let's just hit random one more time because that's not fair type of thing. You know, now it's all about my player and my team and spending real dollars to make your player better. And, you know, we still do that. I still buy the game every year and put, you know, hundreds of hours into it every year with him still. But it's more of playing, you know, oh, we're going to get a squad of 5 my players, quote unquote, and play another squad of 5 created players and do that kind of thing. How much money did you spend, you know, to get to your 99 overall? But just the simplicity of the game and, you know, the memories, and, you know, we're still tight to this day. So I think all those factors made me want to talk about that first, I think. It's funny because like most of my stuff, even though I'm generally a single player fan, a lot of it is multiplayer related. So I'll tell you another story later, but 2K12, 2K13.
Very influential.
Good times, good times. Simple times. Like that's 10, 12 years ago. But, you know, it's definitely stuck with me.
What about you, Zach?
So, you know, I've previously talked about like I learned Japanese in high school because I wanted to play Final Fantasy V. And that wasn't coming out in the US. And I've talked about how I jumped ship from Nintendo consoles to Sony consoles because Final Fantasy jumped ship from Super Nintendo to PlayStation. But I was thinking about it, and like the reason I ended up playing Final Fantasy 1 at all was because Nintendo Power sent my family, many families, a copy of the first Dragon Quest game.
So cool.
At the time, like this was
full game.
Yeah, this was like an incentive to subscribe to Nintendo Power for a year. Is like, we will send you an entire boxed copy of Dragon Warrior.
One of the greatest giveaways ever.
I know, it's so cool.
And I played it. My dad played it. My mom played it. But that was like my introduction to not just JRPGs, but RPGs at all. And that then a year later, Nintendo Power had like some giveaway contests and a lot of coverage for, it was a sweepstakes in the latter case. It was like you and 3 friends can go to Hawaii and act and LARP out Final Fantasy, the hit new RPG we're promoting. I did not win that, but I did get a copy of Final Fantasy. But yeah, so I kind of got like Dragon Warrior led me to Final Fantasy, and then Final Fantasy has been so influential and formative for me in so many ways. I think that's probably what got me into like tabletop RPGs, like made me interested in Dungeons and Dragons. So it is responsible indirectly for me getting into CRPGs also, stuff like Baldur's Gate. Because of Final Fantasy Tactics, that's how I got into like Advance Wars, you know?
Yeah.
It's like the kind of like dungeon crawling aspect of Dragon Warrior and Final Fantasy got me into all sorts of things from like Diablo to Dark Souls, like anything vaguely sword related in video games is like you can trace back to getting a copy of Dragon Warrior from Nintendo
explains
Power.
a lot.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like this was there were multiple games that I came up with when we were talking about this topic, but it was like, well, there's no question number one is like either Dragon Warrior or Final Fantasy. Like this is the seed. Like, if you look around the table, like the main group of things which differ my taste in video games from like everyone else at this table is because I got a copy of Dragon Warrior shipped to my house in 1989. Yeah, and like that stuff, like also Final Fantasy V not only got me into like learning Japanese, it also resulted in me getting into emulation because I had to be able to play the translated game when I found out there was a translated ROM on the internet. And so it got me into ROM hacking also, and Final Fantasy also ended up being like what got me into listening to like video game music as a thing. Like I remember buying online a CD of the music from the first Seiken Densetsu game, Final Fantasy Adventure. But yeah, I mean, there's just like been a ton of like taste making consequences to having ended up with Dragon Warrior as a kid. Yeah.
Well, another one for me, and this is a more recent one, like Ruiner, was The Witcher 3. So I think the only open world game I had played prior to The Witcher 3 was Breath of the Wild. And something about Breath of the Wild to me doesn't even feel quite open world in like a Witcher or whatever sense. It just kind of feels like a really big Hyrule field to me. But fact remains it is an open world game. But I had never really dabbled into that genre prior to The Witcher 3. But then I saw Zach playing the game, and I thought Geralt was super badass. I thought he was really cool. And the game just looked fun, so I decided to try it out on the PS4. And I also played it on the Switch. And that game, I was just like, wow. I mean, not only is it just amazing, it's an incredible game. The storytelling is just so solid. The DLC, in particular, Hearts of Stone, one of the best things I've ever played. But I was just like, I had never really thought about open world very much, and I really like this. I like being able to go around and just find all sorts of stuff and do the side quests and things like that. The lore building, very strong in the Witcher series. And so from The Witcher 3, I actually ended up playing a ton of open world stuff in succession. Like, I think Yakuza 0 was immediately after Witcher 3. And Yakuza 0, I mean, I talked about how fantastic that game is and how the ending had me just sobbing like a little girl and being embarrassed, breaking into just full-blown tears next to Zach. But that game is incredible. Then Ghost of Tsushima played after that, and Rise of the Ronin, and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. It was just like, over the years, it's just been, one after the other, and just discovering this love for this genre.
I didn't put it on my list, but Witcher 3 did also kind of unlock open world RPGs for me.
Yeah. I mean, it's just an incredible game in so many different ways, but it has been really influential on my gaming taste, and just as recently as just the last handful of years.
Far Cry 3 was that for me.
Really?
For open world. Obviously, it's way different.
Yeah.
But just the open world genre.
Yeah.
I hadn't played anything like that before Far Cry. And then,
I mean, that and Assassin's Creed, like the Ubisoft stuff is kind of what solidified the whole genre.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And I've actually wanted to do the Red Dead games now, try those out as a result, because I'm like, well, I mean, that's kind of like pinnacle of open world, so that's something that I intend to play pretty soon. I'm not sure if I'm going to start with the first one or just do the second one. I'm not sure, but just, again, another genre just completely opened up for me because of this one game. And the games that I ended up playing, I mean, they've all, like I said, Yakuza 0, Ghost of Tsushima, Rise of the Ronin, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Those are all super incredibly good, solid games. So I'd be pretty sad, I think, if I had not tried those out or had no interest in it.
So would you say it was more Witcher 3 or Zelda Breath of the Wild?
It's a good question.
It's almost like as a Nintendo fan, you're required to play the Zelda game, right? So
Yeah.
that doesn't count.
Yeah. Dom, actually, what you're saying is exactly what I thought about today before I put Witcher down.
Yeah.
Because I was like, somebody's probably going to say, well, you've mentioned, to death playing Breath of the Wild. But I had the exact same thought as you, which was I played it because I love Zelda, not because it was open world. Now, I didn't play Witcher 3 because it was open world. I played it because it looked like a fun game. But to me, it just seemed much more different in its scope and its size and its setup than the open world of Breath of the Wild. So yeah, I had Dom's thought exactly before we started filming. But yeah.
Cool.
Well, I think that in terms of specific games, I do have a couple more examples, but I mentioned the DS, and like that just console as a whole was like a window opener for me because I mean it's my favorite console still. I'm always partial to the handhelds, but the way it had all these different types of games that I just had never seen before, either because I just was ignorant to them or it was just something kind of new because the DS allowed it, like Cooking Mama, for example. I think that was when I really started to realize how much I loved games in a deeper sense, in terms of like analyzing them, wanting to write about them, wanting to talk about them. Because the DS came out, I believe it was right around the time I was either starting college or had been ending high school, one of the two. But that little period where we're transitioning from Game Boy Advance into DS was this period where I was really learning about different games. Because when I went to college, I had money that I could blow on games. And, unfettered access to GameStop now. Instead of like my parents taking me over to a GameStop to look, it's like I could just go in whenever I want. So I'm just like finding all these different games and realizing that so many different genres and type of games appealed to me. But then wanting to go deeper with it as well. And like part of that stemmed from, Zach talked about like getting Dragon Warrior in the mail. But what I got in the mail was they would send VHS tapes that were like just long ads for the game. And like there was the Banjo-Kazooie one. I think we have the Star Fox one. And then Nintendo Power just constantly featuring pieces of art from the games. As much as I'd like to learn Japanese, I was not compelled to learn a new language playing games. But I remember being frustrated when people would say that games like stymied creativity, like it just made you like a zombie. I know for some people it can kind of be like that, but it was the opposite for me. Games got my imagination just going. So like being able to draw meant I could recreate things in the games or create my own versions of those things from the games. So it's like I always wanted to expand on the game world itself. But then because of stuff like Nintendo Power, it made me want to learn more about like how do they make it. And that's just from like a nuts and bolts perspective of like, how does it even work just making it on the computer, to seeing like art from the games. Like I think Angie's favorite, who's your favorite, the concept artist?
Yusuke Nakano.
That's right. And so if you've ever played Ocarina of Time, all those hand-done drawings of Link, I believe, are his.
He did the art for Ocarina, Majora, and Wind Waker.
And that art is all just, it's so spectacular. And I remember even, being younger thinking, I wish there was a way to just like look at this stuff. So when they started doing like Hyrule Historia, I was like, oh, thank God, they're finally starting to give us what Japan's been getting forever, these art books and all that. So from, it's gaming, but in a broader sense, that was really it for me. The DS and going to GameStop and picking up DS games, some Game Boy Advance games I didn't even know existed, and then eventually branching into like PS2 and other consoles.
Yeah.
Also Twilight Princess. So you can his hallmark was kind of like a heavy use of shadow come Majora's Mask. Yusuke Nakano. He did some pretty cool art. In fact, I'm actually wearing a Zelda t-shirt right now with the piece of art he did for Ocarina, where Link's fighting Volvagia. That's actually on my t-shirt right now. Yusuke Nakano was highly influential on me and the kind of art styles I like. But I'll actually talk about that a little later. But Dom, go ahead.
Yep. So I think I'm going to cheat a little bit because it's not one game. When I was given the question more and more thought about like what really influenced me or what sort of kept my love for gaming going. And I mean, yeah, it was now, I mean, it's all me, now I'm showing Isaac some stuff, but like my parents and my mom specifically, like growing up, it's a trip. The farthest back I can remember, like gaming related, is waking up in the middle of the night after I'd already, been asleep for a few hours and waking up to the bright TV in my room on and my mom and dad sitting on the ground playing Sonic pinball on the Sega and going, taking turns playing Vector Man. And so those two games back then, sparked my interest because I'm like, oh, what are mom and dad doing? Like, I want to get involved. And so it seems like every generation, when I really thought about it, there was always something. There was always like one game or two. And like, I'll give once the N64 came out, it was the most random game, Pokemon Stadium. Mm-hmm. Like my mom was obsessed with it, playing with us. She just enjoyed it so much. And so me and Steph would drop whatever we were doing when she's like, hey, you guys want to do mini games? We're like, yeah, let's do mini games,
The sushi, look-a-tongue, sushi
yeah,
go
that was
around.
her favorite because she loves sushi, so of course it transpired there.
Yeah.
But like, I remember every mini game just because we put so many hours playing with my mom. And then, GameCube was mainly me and Steph. Mm-hmm. My parents surprised me with the GameCube. Okay. One day, it was for Christmas, but we went through the whole Christmas tradition. We went to grandma's, came back. This is when we were living in Stockton, so we got back late.
Yeah.
We were opening our Yu-Gi-Oh cards at the time, and then they're like, "Oh, we forgot about a present." Brought out the GameCube bundle from Costco with the Wind Waker and the memory cards and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So like that, and then going on to the Wii. You guys remember how hard it was to get the Wii?
Oh
right?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. My mom finally was able to get in touch with a GameStop. The GameStop on Hagenberger.
Oh yeah.
By In-N-Out.
Uh-huh.
That's where we got ours.
Yeah, we found out they had it in stock, and we made a mad dash to that GameStop, bought it, and then me, my dad, my mom, and at the time it was just Steph still. I don't think Lindsay was probably born, but anyways, we played Wii bowling till like 2-3 in the morning.
Yeah.
Like every day. I think it was summertime, anyways.
Remember Steph's exaggerated.
Yeah. My mom still bowls like that. If we were putting it on. She just throws her whole body into it.
Yeah, so Steph is Dom's sister, his older sister, and of his two sisters, she's the older one. Dom is the oldest of his siblings, but she would do this full-bodied throw where she'd take the Wii remote and do this like exaggerated like uppercut and then like arched her back, like throw her head back. And sometimes, a lot of the times actually, she'd get these really good bowls out of it. Like she'd get strikes sometimes. It was so annoying.
Exactly. The Wii era was fun because like we would go to Toys R Us just to browse, and I ended up coming home with Super Paper Mario because my mom was like, "Oh, just get it. We'll just go home and play." And then even most recently, we kind of died off because then I was a teenager, and then Rock Band was like our big family thing, especially with my mom. We played till 2-3 in the morning, but just like constantly every generation of a system coming out, it was always tied to like playing as a family. And it just seemed like it was two ways. Like me and my siblings were like, yeah, mom wants to play, but they genuinely loved it too. They liked hanging out with us. And like, it's just a trip now, Isaac's at my age when my parents were playing Sonic and Vector Man. And I'm just like, wow. Hopefully the memories stick with him like they did with me, but all that was so influential in everything. Yeah. And it was just a reminder of some good times. And
it's funny, our GameCube and Wii origins are kind of similar because I never thought we were going to get a GameCube. All three of the first systems we got were kind of technically either gifts or hand-me-downs. It was the NES, SNES, and N64. They all randomly kind of wound up at our grandma's house. But I remember one day, it was not a special occasion either. I think we just showed up at grandma's house and our Aunt Linda had bought a GameCube. And I remember like we were getting Nintendo Power and they kept saying how the GameCube was coming. I was like, what does it matter? We're not going to have one. And then all of a sudden it was there. I was like, oh my God, we have a GameCube. And that thing felt so futuristic with the mini discs and the incredible graphics. And then the Wii, that was, again, coincidental. You guys got it at Hagenberger. We were with Linda, and it was, I think summer vacation had just started. Mm-hmm. And we just popped in there on the way to Grandma's. And the guy behind the counter was like, hey, you guys want a Wii? And we're like, why? You have one? Because it was sold out everywhere. And he's like, yeah, we got a couple left right now. And so we looked at our aunt, and we were just like, we're never going to find one again. Like, not for a long time. And so Linda was like, yeah, okay. So we bought a Wii and took it to Grandma's house.
Yeah, I had trouble tracking it down, too. I got it from, actually, the Sears at, like, 20th.
In Oakland, the downtown
You got it
Sears?
at that Sears?
I got it at that Sears.
Oh, that's
yeah.
so funny. The
That's
Super
cool,
Sears.
yeah.
Shout out Linda, too.
Yeah.
Linda had a heavy hand in all this, too.
Linda made much of this possible.
Yeah.
We... my pumpkin spice GameCube controller. Oh, that was so precious to me, and I remember being so heartbroken when it developed stick drift.
Yeah.
And it came out when we were playing Melee one time, and I was just like, "Why is Link walking to the left?" Like,
On
that
the
was-
topic,
yeah.
somehow, some way, Isaac took on your trait
What?
with the hands.
Sweaty? He's got sweaty hands.
Angie, when I'm telling you, we were playing Mario vs. Donkey Kong last night, me and him.
Yeah.
I gave that boy a high five because we beat this level that we kept dying on. And
Yeah.
I'm like, God damn, what? His hands were so sweaty. He's like,
no.
I'm sorry. I'm like, no. It's okay.
Oh, I'm gonna have to give him all my tips and tricks. But to your point, Dom, of like memories of playing games with your parents. Our parents didn't play a lot of games. Definitely not our dad, but he'd have his moments with like things that he liked to play or liked to watch us play. Mm-hmm. But Mom loved playing like Beetle Adventure Racing.
I remember that.
And she loved like her stupid, like her name. You know how you could put in your initials or your name? It was Oh Yeah. Like that was her.
That's it. It's a standby everywhere. Every arcade.
Yeah. Oh Yeah.
If you see that, it's
Wait, so
our
it's
mother.
OYA?
No, when you could spell it out, it was
Full,
yeah,
like,
full,
Oh, yeah.
Oh Yeah.
Okay. Because
Yeah.
I'm thinking like 3 initials.
Oh yeah. No, with the initials, she always thought it was cool that hers were Jam.
Jam.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
that's cool.
It's just so annoying. But like Robert's talked about, like our dad liked. What was it? The Terminator Game Boy game? Or was it?
Well, he liked the Terminator arcade machine.
Oh, that's what it was.
But he would occasionally grab a Game Boy to play Tetris. When it was
Yeah,
I can
Tetris.
remember him doing that.
Yeah.
He didn't do it for long, but
Yeah, and he would like coming in and watching just certain games, like watch this, like. And then Roberts talked about how he showed him L.A. Noire, and our dad is he loves to drive and he loves certain cities a lot, and he's from Oakland, but he was very familiar with like the topography of L.A. And so L.A. Noire, one of its selling points was that it was like a 1-to-1 recreation of like Los Angeles streets. And so he was watching Robert play and he was telling him, turn down this street, turn down that street. It should take you to X or Y. And it was.
he led me to a theater. He said, if you turn left here and then you go there, you should see a theater. And then I rolled up and there was the theater.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So that was pretty cool. But Zach.
Yeah.
Yeah. Second one I want to name is the original Contra on the NES, which when I was a kid, I thought was really cool. And I didn't own it for a long time, but it was something, that and Super Dodgeball were the two games that I would rent repeatedly. Just kept going back to that well. But it wasn't until I was like in my early 20s. I don't remember what gave me this idea, but I was like, I'm going to learn to beat Contra without dying. And if you know Contra, like you die in one hit in that game. Mm-hmm. And normally you have 3 lives. You can earn more lives with a high enough score, but you got 3 lives. There is a famous code you can input at the title screen that will give you 30 lives instead. But I thought, I bet I can beat this without dying. And I remember like I had like an index card, and I was just like logging on a series of index cards. Like, this is the date. Here was the attempt. Here's how many times I died in each of the 8 stages of Contra. And just like tracking that over and over, trying to see it go down. Stage 6 was a problem.
Is that how you play your Dark Souls games?
No, but this did end up, this was like the first game I'd really tried to do any kind of like self-imposed challenge on in that way. And so it ended up like leading me to appreciate things about the game that I hadn't appreciated previously. I've said maybe on this podcast that like, I feel like a significant part of the reason Contra has a reputation of being hard is that it has a 30-man code. Because when you have 30 lives, you're sloppy. Like, you don't care that much about getting hit because you got like 29 other attempts.
Yeah.
When you don't have that safety net, you play differently. And that was the point at which I understood that, like, there are things you get out of a game when you play it well and are like actually challenging yourself and like playing it to the best of your abilities and really trying. There are things you get out of the experience of playing the game that you don't get from just playing it. And so that kind of unlocked 1cc's for me, like playing a game without continuing. I ended up doing that with Super C also, and then like the old Castlevania games, Castlevania 1, Dracula's Curse, Rondo of Blood. And it led me to like, reevaluate a bunch of games. That's the point at which I got into like Mario 3. I mean, I liked it already, but like playing, like kind of being like, how fast can I get through Mario 3? Rather than just like playing it or like, I want to play all my favorite stages. I was like, what's the minimum number of stages I need to do in order to beat the game? Can I do it in X amount of time? Can I do it, etc.? And you can beat that game in like 15 minutes, easy. Like speedrunners can beat it in like 10, but like normal people can beat it in like 15 minutes if they know what they're doing.
This is like old school achievements right here. There's no recognition for it.
Yep.
Yeah. And this also, like, this stuff influences the way I play games that don't even really map that cleanly onto the idea of like a 1cc. Like, I think, Angie, this probably frustrates you, but sometimes you'll see me play a game and I'll just like let myself die or like not heal, you know?
Yes.
And it's because I don't want to just like heal spam my way through the game. I want to actually understand what I'm doing wrong. And I'll like early stages in a game, I will force myself to understand the dance of how to play it before proceeding with it. Because I feel like, so Contra for me was the point at which I learned to appreciate, I guess, challenge runs, hard modes, self-imposed challenges, stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
That was a good story.
yeah. Tournament fighters. I know. So I knew Zach was gonna laugh at this, but
Oh, the Ninja Turtle one?
yeah,
Oh,
TMNT
okay,
tournament
okay.
fighters. So
For the Super Nintendo specifically.
yes,
Street
yes.
Fighter, Ninja Turtles.
Yeah. So they thought that they were gonna be, if not a Street Fighter killer, at least a legitimate Street Fighter competitor and
Street Fighter coattails rider.
yeah, so that clearly didn't pan out. Though we did get a re-release of that game. What was that? A couple years ago now.
Really?
Yeah, in the
Yeah.
what was that called, Robert? That Cowabunga collection or something.
That's right, TMNT Cowabunga Collection.
Yeah.
It's in there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. I was just as shocked as you because I thought they would never re-release that game. But that game I absolutely love. Like, I played so much of it growing up. But it, I think, unlocked my love of the fighting game. And it's interesting because of growing up, like, I didn't know a whole lot of other girls that played games. I knew a couple girls who they would like, oh yeah, I like playing like Mario Kart, or I like playing The Sims. For some reason, The Sims is very, very popular among girls. But that was it. I didn't know any other girls that played as much as I did. But of all of the genres of stuff that I play, fighting games is the one where I've encountered the fewest fellow girls that like fighting games, which is to say none. Now, obviously, there are not zero women in the planet, other women who like fighting games. I just think that it's a very, I don't know, I guess maybe something about it is more masculine. I'm not really sure. But, and I'm curious to know, I didn't bother to look this up, but like what the breakdown is among like men or women who play fighting games, men versus women who play. But I suspect it's probably a greater male player base. And maybe it's just the competition. It can get kind of intense, but I think having that game as like a core game that I played a lot as a kid, I think is just why it opened up that genre for me. But because I would go on to obviously love Smash. Smash is my most favorite fighting franchise, Smash Bros. But then Soul Calibur 2 on the GameCube. So I probably honestly would not have been into that game or even really known about it if Link weren't in the GameCube version. But like between me and Robert, I think I played that game probably double the amount that he did. Like I would be playing it alone. And like there was an arcade moment. It was like it was like the
story mode.
There was a story mode, but then there was the survival mode where it was just like keep going till you're dead. and I would be playing forever. Just like I'd reach like double digit. I don't know if I reached 100, but like double digit amounts of matches against me and the CPU, and it would get harder and harder. Where I was just sitting there, just going and going. I love fighting games. I remember playing some Mortal Kombat at an ex's house. His brother loved Mortal Kombat, and I remember playing with his brother. But we had Mortal Kombat we have it on the SNES. I never really got into the Mortal Kombat franchise beyond just like those, but like playing it is really, really fun. And I remember jumping into the one that was on the PS3 that his brother had, and just immediately just like figuring it out and having a ton of fun with it. Marvel vs. Capcom, I always gravitated towards in the arcades when I was growing up. Loved playing those games. I love the sprite art. And like a lot of my favorite characters are in both those games. You know, Spidey, Gambit, Psylocke. Like playing as Dom.
Weapon Master.
Weapon Master. Yeah, thank you. See, I never would have remembered that. Yeah. And then Street Fighter. I've never been, super great at Street Fighter, but I love playing it. It's a ton of fun. So just the fighting game genre, there's just a lot to love in it, and I've just always been just really drawn to it. And I think Tournament Fighter really just kind of lit that fire under me.
Well, I think another Lori-related gaming story, that's Dom's mom. When I was a kid, somehow this woman knew all of the secrets in Super Mario Brothers. To this day, I don't know how she knew them. There was no YouTube. She saw it or read it somewhere, but she would come over, and I can remember she would show me these secrets when she'd be at the house. And I think that probably added to my love of Mario and like platformers in general. I guess, it's the Mario series in terms of platformers. I like lots of different platformers as a result of that game. The Mario series is probably my favorite, but that led me being interested in stuff like Donkey Kong Country, the Sonic games. And like they always talked about how you were either a Nintendo or a Sega household in the 90s, and that's mostly true. But my mom's side of the family, her brothers had a Sega Genesis, so when we would go visit those grandparents, the Genesis was at that house, and so we'd sit and play things like Sonic. So those all just immensely satisfied me. I don't know what it is about the platforming genre in general, because whether it's 2D or 3D. There's something just really satisfying about exploring the stages, and it's either like when it comes to the 3D games, like finding stuff, right? Like you're collecting objects, or I think the challenge of the stages, in especially the 2D ones, where you have these different kind of obstacles in front of you, and it's like, a test of skill, and not just like being able to complete it, but like as you get better, it's like, how can I complete this in a more efficient way? Or just a way that's a little more entertaining to me. That's like if you're playing Donkey Kong Country, you can do little things with Diddy and Donkey's rolling that isn't like explicitly shown to you. But like, sometimes I'll roll down a hill and do these weird little twists as I'm going down, and it's more expedient than just like running. And it's like, that's the kind of stuff that you only discover after you've been playing, for years and have gone through a game a million different times. I'm thinking of our family, kind of like what Angie was talking about. Not as much playing, with my parents. My mom definitely more than my dad, but we never had a console at the house, so like she wouldn't really sit and play with us. But I do remember our Uncle Carlos loved video games. And I think he might have been the one who brought the Game Genie to the house for the first time.
Oh, really?
I think he's the source of the Game Genie. I can't remember.
Good man.
I remember he'd get fiercely competitive. My dad would talk about having to kind of restrain him because he'd be getting frustrated with like me at 4. And that Game Genie, I have a lot of memories of, for whatever reason, being incapable of looking at the page and typing in the codes myself. I could not do both things.
That tracks. 100% that tracks.
So I would ask my grandma to come in. And I'd say, Grandma, can you read the letters to me so I can put them in? And I tell her what code. You're like, I want infinite lives, or this or that. She's like, oh, okay, mijo. And so she'd sit and she'd read the letters to me. Oh, it's so funny. I have a lot of memories of that. I guess that's enough for me from this one. I'm trying to figure out another one to discuss. Go ahead, Dom.
So maybe like one more story after this, because I have.
Yeah, I have one more to cover.
Okay, then I can split it because I was gonna do. I couldn't figure out which one to do.
Okay.
Do two.
All right, so I guess I'll do Gears first. So the Gears of War series, I played 1 and 2 solo, like very near release date, but Gears of War 3 I didn't play until much later. Like I'm talking about when Gears 5 came out, like around maybe a few months before. So me and Nathan, my little brother, this was kind of soon after I actually moved out of my parents' house. When I was at the house, me and my siblings played video games all the time, whether it was split screen or whatever. And we decided we were going to give Gears of War, the whole series, a shot. We're like, let's try to finish the series before Gears 5 comes out. And then the plan was ultimately buy my Series X and play Gears of 5 on that as like our first game. So we tried to time it all out. So we played co-op the whole series. I was Dom, most of the for as long as he lasted.
Yeah.
So mind you, a reminder, I didn't play 3. So I had no idea about Dom's death. Spoiler, sorry. But we played online for most of it, but there were times where he would hit me up on a Friday, and we'd plan it out. He'd come over. He'd bring his monitor, his Xbox, his headphones, and we hook it up to the landline, to the router at my house. So we each had a full screen. Because if he came over, we had to play split screen. Yeah. So we each had a full screen, and it just brought me back to staying at my parents' and play with him that way.
Yeah.
So we played through that. And then Gears of War 3... when Dom died, we kind of saw it coming because the scene is like he like sacrifices himself basically and blows himself up. And we're just like sitting there, and we happen to be in the same room when we did this scene, and we're just like looking at each other like, bro, there's no way. We're like, there's no way. And we're just like, dude. And then it happens, and then they switch me to another character. I can't remember who you switched. I think it's some chick. I can't remember her name either, but I think we sat there and just like, dude, your co-op partner is gone. That was just Marcus. Like, what the hell happened? So we played 3, and then we played 4 and 5, and then we even played the spin-off of 5. I think it's called Hive Busters or something. But anyways,
there's another one, right, where you play as Cole?
Oh, that's the one I'm thinking of. Judgment, Gears of War Judgment. We played that too. So that Gears series, even though it was pretty recent, was one of the best gaming like experiences with him, like the whole thing. It was awesome. Yeah, like that will go down in the memory bank for sure. And I bring it up all the time, like, dude, we got to find something like to play like that again. And we kind of did the game Anthem, the game that like flopped. Me and him had a blast with that game. We had again, he played on his monitor, I played on mine. We played through the whole campaign. But yeah, Gears of War, the whole series.
Can I just briefly interrupt with an Anthem story? It broke my heart. I was working at GameStop, and you get all sorts of customers at GameStop. We had a special needs guy who would come in occasionally, and I think it was like his brother or something would bring him in, and he's older too, and he's looking for a game, and special needs people have different tastes in games, right? Sometimes it's just a matter of like just whatever to play, right?
Yeah.
Well, they didn't have much money, and they found Anthem for him to buy. And so we rang him up, and I didn't think about it until after they left. I was like, wait, we just sold him Anthem. I'm like, he's not going to be able to play Anthem. I'm like, he probably might not even have like PSN or whatever.
Yeah.
I just remember feeling awful thinking, damn, he's stuck with this game that he's not going to be able to use. It was the strangest thing. They just happened to come back. And I was like, oh, thank God they came back. And I looked at his brother and I said, you guys just bought Anthem. I said, I don't think he's going to be able to play it. And I told him why. And he was super grateful, and they returned it and exchanged it. It was one of those weird cosmic coincidences. I was like, God was looking out for him. It's like it's just so random.
You know, you should have actually felt bad if you sold it to him at full price. I think 2 weeks after release, they were going for like $9.99.
Oh, no, you got it cheap. That was why I bought it. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So this kid a copy of Anthem for $60.
Oops.
Oops.
Were we just talking about corporate greed?
Yeah.
Yeah, next one from me. I remember I never gravitated towards stealth games. And I remember when I would play games that had a stealth component, like the Fortress early on in Wind Waker, or for that matter, Metal Gear Solid, I did not like the stealth. Like, I still enjoyed Metal Gear Solid, but like the actual act of like waiting for soldiers to patrol back and forth and waiting for your moment and stuff like that, it just felt like, well, it felt like waiting. It felt like a game based around waiting. And I found the stealth stuff in Wind Waker really frustrating. And I had just kind of like completely written off the genre or like the mechanic of stealth in general. I took it as like synonymous with waiting. I just wanted to go in there guns blazing. I wanted to act on the world, you know? And then at some point I got a habit of watching way too much YouTube, but I watched like a YouTube video from some guy named White Light. I don't know why I clicked on it, but it was about Assassin's Creed Unity. And he just made it seem like kind of busted, but also really cool. And he was just like talking about the toolkit that Arno has in that game. And it got me really excited. And I ended up picking it up and loving it. And it completely changed my perspective on like, this is like you had with Ruiner, this like unlocked a genre for me. Because in Assassin's Creed Unity, more than most Assassin's Creed games actually, like you can play with a lot of waiting, but it's actually much harder than it is to just play using the very potent toolkit Arno has. You have very powerful smoke bombs you can throw wherever you want to. You have blades you can fire from your wrist to like one-hit kill guards. You have different blades you can fire from your wrist to berserk guards and make them fight each other. You have like cherry bombs you can throw as like sound cues to control them. You can disguise yourself, and that's all in addition to like the social stealth and being able to like climb high up and attack from on high. Like, it helps that it's really stylish too, and it helps that the architecture in Assassin's Creed Unity does so much to facilitate that play. But Assassin's Creed Unity flipped things around for me for the whole genre, because it really made me feel like the only limit to how fast I can play is my own creativity and risk taking. And that felt very different to any stealth I'd played before. Mm-hmm. And then that inspired me to go explore like all of the other Assassin's Creed games, which is too much Assassin's Creed. And they're not all equally good, but a lot of the ones that I did gravitate to are the ones that do have a lot more tools that you can use. And like that aspect of it is also something I really came to enjoy in Ghost of Tsushima, where you're flowing in between open combat and stealth stuff, where you're just like, you know, just like bursting out, throwing a kunai at somebody's throat and then slinking back into the shadows. And like that really opened it up for me. Like the idea of stealth as less about waiting and more about risk taking really made it a lot of fun for me. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you know, I've played like all the Assassin's Creed games at this point.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up Ghost of Tsushima and the stealth. I remember during my playthrough when they introduced stealth, the whole beginning talking about how dishonorable it was.
Yeah.
You know, you have to kill your enemy facing you.
Yeah.
So even after they introduced stealth, I was like, man, I'm not going to use stealth as much as possible. I mean, it worked for a while, but
yeah,
you know, it gets pretty challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think if they were going to introduce stealth, I think they should have been part of the story like that, man.
Yeah.
Huh.
But yeah, I guess I had to beat the whole story to understand, right?
In Ghost of Tsushima?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of like railroad you. The story railroads you into doing something dishonorable. So like the story will ultimately make sense no matter how much you're using the ninja stuff. But yeah.
Well, the last one is probably not a surprise, but it was highly influential in different ways. So I've talked a lot about Ocarina of Time and how influential that was on my life. So I won't touch on that because I've touched on it a lot. But no, just Ocarina it influenced the types of like styles of art, styles of game music, just like a lot of different things that it influenced on my gaming tastes moving forward. But interestingly, I've never really been into like the Zelda likes that have come out. A lot of games that'll get described as like, oh, this is Zelda like. I've just never really been into them, or I'll just be like, this is too blatant of a ripoff, and I don't like that. So like Ocarina opened up the Zelda franchise for me because we didn't have Zelda prior to Ocarina. Like we didn't grow up with the original Zelda or Link to the Past. Although, Robert, you had Link's Awakening, right?
On the Game Boy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I think there was a re-release right around the time that Ocarina came out, and I can't remember what I played first.
Okay. Because we at least I remember distinctly Link's Awakening. But then Ocarina of Time opened up the whole Zelda franchise to us, and to me. But the only Zelda-like I can really think of truly loving is Okami. Okami is visually beautiful. It's got a super compelling story, great characters, and yeah, in many ways it plays like Zelda. And that's the only one I can think of that gets described as Zelda-like that I really truly love. And Okami, there were a lot of times growing up where I'd be spending my time during the summer, on summer vacation from school, playing a single game because, like Robert and Dom have mentioned, the console was at our grandma's house. And we had, like me and Robert had our Game Boys at home, but like the GameCube or the N64 or whatever was at grandma's. And so we'd spend our summer days at grandma's while our parents were working. And so we'd spend like part of the day, playing games, and the other part of the day in the steel wall pool that our aunt would put up every summer. So it was like spending time throughout the whole summer on like a single game. And Okami was one of them one year. And that game just blew me away. And it was just so incredibly unique and creative. It's especially well adapted for the Wii. That's the version that I played. So I think that love for Ocarina and the 3D Zelda games definitely influenced how much I liked that game. But then Zach had mentioned one of the Final Fantasies, I think, Zach, really influencing you loving video game music. And Ocarina of Time did that for me big time. I don't mean to sound, like uppity or whatever. I just think that Ocarina's soundtrack is very sophisticated. I think that it has a lot of really interesting sound and a lot of like global influence on its music, which you can hear in the Water Temple, the Spirit Temple, even to some degree, like the Shadow Temple music. It's just a fantastic soundtrack, but definitely had an influence on the music that I'd go on to like later. But also just like that idea, like Zach said, that concept of video game soundtracks being a thing for me. And I listen to them constantly. It's especially nice for writing, when I'm at work and I want music, but nothing with lyrics that'll be distracting. Video game music is my go-to. And there are like whole soundtracks that I gravitate to a lot, like Bomberman Hero soundtrack, Tournament Fighters, Beetle Adventure Racing, Witcher 3, a lot of stuff from the Donkey Kong Country series from the first and second games, and then different Zelda soundtracks as well are a lot of the time just like my go-to, among other like individual sounds like Final Fantasy 16, Final Fantasy 7, Mega Man X. So yeah, definitely like sparked my love for video game soundtracks. And then Yusuke Nakano's art, which Robert touched on really briefly. So again, he worked on Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, and Twilight Princess. And from Majora's Mask through Twilight Princess, his use of shadow was really heavy. Not quite as heavy at all for Ocarina of Time. But he had this just really cool, distinct style, and you could tell it was him. Even the Wind Waker stuff, which is like distinctly different from Majora, Ocarina, and Twilight Princess, but you just tell it was him. And part of it was like that use of shadow and the way he used shadow. But his style, like that would influence not just the types of gaming art that I liked, but even stuff like manga. Because for manga, I think every single series I was ever into, it was because I liked the art first. If I didn't like the art, I wasn't reading it. But like Full Metal Alchemist, Black Cat, the Yu-Gi-Oh manga, the Sailor Moon manga actually predates this. I loved the Sailor Moon manga from the time I was a kid, and the Pokemon manga. But like yeah, all those ones that I would read later, go on to read later, it was because I loved that the art styles. And the art styles kind of had, in some ways, a little bit of that kind of Yusuke Nakano-ish kind of look in some ways. But yeah, I mean, and also just the idea of, do I want to read this based on the art? Because he really influenced my art preferences. So it wasn't just an influential game on my life in terms of like career path kind of stuff, but just types of game, art, music, etc. that I'd go on to really love. So.
Well, I don't know if it was necessarily specifically this game, but it's definitely this series. I think I've probably maybe told this story on the podcast before, but a major influential moment for me was getting an Xbox 360. I technically had an Xbox 360 once. My friend Daniel had sold me his, but I think he knew it was red ringing. And so like he managed to get it to turn on and then sold it to me. And so I had gotten it, I hooked it up to the TV I had, and I think I bought a couple games, and then it red ringed. And I had paid him like half, and I was like, I'm not paying the rest of it. So I didn't have an Xbox 360 forever. But then I started working at GameStop with one of my friends. Actually, with two of my friends. It was Justin and Phil. Phil barely worked with the two of us. He ended up leaving after not too long. But I remember one night I got a knock on my door, and it was Phil, and he had a box in his arms, and he just hands it to me, and it was the red Resident Evil Xbox 360. Used. And I was like, oh, I'm like, what is this? And they're like, here, we want you to play Call of Duty with us. And you won't buy an Xbox, so take it. And I was like, are you serious? I'm like, I can pay you guys back. I'm like, no, but you have to go buy Call of Duty. So I think I came in at the very tail end of Modern Warfare 2. I never really got to play it online with any of them. But after that, I think was Black Ops. Whatever was next, I'm pretty sure is what I played with them. And I had never done any competitive gaming at all. If I played with anybody, it was my family, and we'd play like Smash Bros. Together at birthday parties.
Mario Kart.
And that was always fun, but like I've never felt like competitive about it. I think it's because I know these people, you know? It's like my sister and my cousin. But when you're playing strangers and you realize you're playing people and it's not the computer, it just unlocks something completely different in your brain in terms of satisfaction. And it's like, this is a different type of skill. Because the computer can be hard, but the computer becomes much more predictable. Whereas with people, you get all sorts of variations in terms of behavior and skill and on and on. And so playing Call of Duty online for the first time, I was just like, wow, like this is something else. No wonder everybody's obsessed with this. And so I would just sit, for hours and hours and just play Call of Duty. And, that was it for years. Like, that was the game that you played competitively, is you went online to play Call of Duty in its heyday on Xbox 360. I think that was it at its best. And so it opened up my mind to a couple things. I mean, I hadn't really played many first-person shooters up to that point. GoldenEye was probably about it. I don't think I ever had Perfect Dark as a kid.
Metroid Prime, if you want to count that.
Oh yeah, Metroid Prime would definitely have preceded any Call of Duty. But just in terms of like going online and wanting to play with other people and enjoying that experience, that was eye-opening. And it made me realize I was more competitive than I actually ever knew that I was. Especially because I didn't play sports as a kid either. So it was just like, this is my first time me taking whatever skill I have and going up against people. And yeah, so that was pretty influential playing Call of Duty. There's always a standout in my mind because the Call of Duty games get a bad rap for being crap. I think they're a lot better made than people give them credit for. But I remember playing, I think again it was Black Ops. And my buddies all play with headsets, so they have like, whatever, Turtle Beaches at the time were it. So in my situation, I did not have a headset like that. I had a headset to hear them. It was just like a little speaker or microphone or whatever. But I had a stereo system in my place because I live in a small house and I don't have to worry about waking anybody up. So I have the sound coming through, and we're going through, I think it's the silo stage. It's like a nuclear reactor. And all of a sudden, just start hearing, like, I think it was like a jet going overhead. It was something in the game. And damn, it sounded real. Like, it really sounded like it was above me. And I remember, like, kind of pausing in the game and saying, is anybody else hearing this? And my friend Phil was like, yeah. And we're like pausing. We're like, this is the game, right? And we're like, okay, yes, it's the game. But it was such a neat moment of like really good sound design. I think we take for granted they've been using Dolby at least since the N64 era. And especially when everything converted to discs, you start getting really good audio. But when audio is implemented well, you can do things like that where you're just sitting and you're like, I think I'm going to die. Yeah. This is what it's like to have a jet strike overhead. And it's like, no, it's just the game. It's like, oh, okay. Also, just the hilarity that comes from playing online with people. I don't know how good we were, but when it was me and the friends that were all playing online, we were really good. We would almost never lose when we'd be in a lobby with people. And one time we were doing Capture the Flag, and one of the squad mates is this guy named Bijan. Bijan said, guys, I'm going to hide. And we're like, well, why? We got to capture the flag. He's like, no. I'm just going to keep hiding. And you guys just keep going and killing them so we can, like, get a bunch of experience points. And so this team we were playing could not get us. And they could not figure out where Bijan was hiding. And so we just kept slaughtering them. And they finally, at one point, he had crawled, now this is another hallmark of Call of Duty that I don't even think happens anymore, but they'd sneak in these weird little like side rooms or like outcroppings, and they were just these random spots you could find. So Bijan had found this outcropping that was on a hotel level. I think you were like in a Cuban hotel. It was DLC. He's out on this, like, it was like a metal I-beam, and we all figured out where he was, and we followed him, and all like 5 of us were on the I-beam. And we were laughing because we were, like, hidden. And then one of the other guys found us and slaughtered all 5 of us at once. But it was just so funny. We could tell they were pissed. The Call of Duty lobbies, we don't need to go into detail, but those are legendary. But there were little things that you could do, too. So, like, if you were in the lobby, people would be shit-talking. But as it would fade into the match, you would still hear people. But the microphones were off because you couldn't see who was talking anymore. And so that would be the perfect time to get in a really good dig because nobody could figure out who actually said it. That was great. Like, all of this was fun. Last one, I think this was... I'm not going to remember which game. I just remember it's a snowy battlefield, and there was this big-ass radio tower. And it was, of course, a great sniping position. So I hate campers with a passion. And if I'd find a camper, they would become my new source of hate, and I would focus on them. So the dude got me from the tower, and I knew where he was. He kept coming back to the tower. And no matter what he did, he could not prevent me from climbing all the way up and slaughtering him. And I would always do it in creative ways. Like, I'd get right up to him, because if he'd be sniping... he wouldn't realize I had, like, walked right in front of him until I'm, like, directly in his line of sight. So, like, I'd crawl up, be right in front of him, and then tomahawk him in the face. And you could record these things. So I had this entire string of video of just the creative ways that I had murdered him. Throwing the tomahawk from, like, all the way down up into the tower and managing to get him because he wasn't moving.
Robert used to make me laugh when I'd watch him use the tomahawk because it made this really satisfying, like, thunk sound. Yeah. And it would make me laugh. I'd laugh because he would piss some guys off. Like, because I think a lot of people just maybe disregarded the tomahawk.
It was a sign of disrespect.
Yeah.
Something about it really pissed people off. And you could ricochet it, too.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, you'd get somebody really good, and you'd get a DM. And every once in a while, the DM would be like, that was a pretty good shot. I got at least 1 or 2 of those.
GG.
Yeah, I was like, that was good. So yeah, the introduction of Call of Duty. And it's sad because I think once your friends kind of move on and you're not playing as much anymore, some of the appeal goes away. Yeah. But like within the past 2 years, I was playing Modern Warfare 2 on PS5. And I was playing with some friends doing that. And I was like, yeah, I forgot how addicting this can be. Mm-hmm. It's incredibly fun, just sitting there blowing up people. My new favorite thing is I don't care how annoying it is. I love using the rocket launcher, the noob tube, just blowing people up. Because, again, it pisses people off. It's just like, oh, that fucker's using a grenade launcher. He's doing this and that. And it's like...
Because when you kill somebody, you get to hear them talk to their mic for like 2-3 seconds.
Yeah.
It's so it's so funny. It's just like, and it's like the insanity of it because it's not real. You know, it's like it's not realistic how any of this is portrayed. But you just sit there and you blow up people. It's so good. And
I used to get mad when I'd find somebody camping in a room and they had clearly taken all this time to try and make the room impenetrable. Like
they'd set up traps.
Yeah, they'd have like walls, like layers of traps. There was like, landmines and the like motion detector stuff. Wasn't there like a microwave emitter or something like that? in one of them?
There was a microwave emitter.
Yeah, there was that. And then they were behind all of it. And it would really satisfy me when like I knew they were in there and I'd throw a grenade or I'd throw a flashbang or something and it would take out a bunch of those things and they were disoriented and then you just blow them away.
That's Black Ops 2.
Yeah.
Oh man, the EMP grenade.
Yeah, the EMP grenade.
And and then this leads to all the other games. Fortnite's pretty fun to play with other people too. Mm-hmm. Fortnite was the first time I felt old playing a game.
Oh.
Because I was like, all right, let's see what this is all about. And I went and I just kept getting my ass kicked, and I'm like, I don't understand what I'm doing wrong, and like, why is the arena shrinking? And like, it made no sense to me. I finally figured it out when I played with some friends, but I think I could go on and on. I could talk about Zelda. I could talk about Mario, Metroid, whatever. But these specific examples I've given really speak to the breadth of my tastes. It's like whether it's learning to love games, especially in part because of my aunt and uncle, or just becoming interested in the industry more broadly. And then this side that I never thought I would care about, playing Call of Duty. And then just realizing, I actually love playing this type of game. Because I get a little frustrated when I'll hear people discussing games. And there's like the elitists who they totally crap on stuff like Call of Duty. It's just kitty cookie, garbage. It's like, shut up. It's like, first of all, get good. We all know that's the real problem, is you suck. And you go into a match and you're a liability. We know it. But also just like this idea that it's not fun. It's like, clearly it's fun, dude. It's like even the shittiest mobile game where you're like, I understand where everybody wants to play it. It's like, there's a reason people are plunking money down on all this ridiculous stuff. People have fun with it. And I think that when you allow yourself to open up to all these different games, you can have a lot of fun with them. The one thing I still have yet to crack, and I know eventually I will, are the sports games. I started a little bit with the show. I was playing the show 2 years ago. And I was playing it on my Switch, and I was also playing on an Xbox because it was when it first went multi-platform. And I was like, this is starting to get me. I'm having a lot of fun pitching and doing all these different things. At some point, I'm probably going to get hooked on like NBA 2K and Madden.
The show is fun. Okay. It's funny you talked Call of Duty because that's my next story. So it's a good little segue. I won't talk as much because you pretty much have the same thoughts as me. But I played like Modern Warfare 2, the original Black Ops. I didn't do as much multiplayer. But once my youngest sister and my brother got the green light to play the shooters with me, Black Ops 3 is the game. They played the hell out of that game. So we ended up having 2 Xbox Ones. And this was another game where we played at my parents' house while they were in their room and I was in my room. They played split screen this whole time, and I played on my screen. And kind of to Rob's point, just, playing as a team. And then it was a lot to do with their enjoyment of the game. They constantly were clipping like videos. Me and the two of them had like this competition who can get more kills all the time. It's like, Lindsay, you went off like 27 kills. Like, what? You're cracked. So like those memories, ultimately influenced, me playing more multiplayer games down the line with them. Me and Nathan loved Fortnite when it first came out. And then when Apex came out, we were hooked. And it just trickled. And then Warzone in 2019, we played that game, all the time. But Black Ops 3 is the game, and it's funny because they'll still, if they come into my house, they'll fire Black Ops 3 up, whether it's on my PlayStation 5 or my Xbox. Yeah. And then we'll constantly like go to old clips back in the day. She's like, look at all these clips we recorded. Like, it's good times. But yeah, Black Ops 3. That's my last entry.
Yeah. What about you, Zach?
Last one for me is going to be Cave Story, which was kind of like the quintessential indie game of its era. It was something that some Japanese office worker had been dabbling on in his spare time and released in, I want to say like 2004. And it got like I previously mentioned, Dragon Warrior and Final Fantasy got me into a number of things, including ROM hacking. And I remember becoming aware of Cave Story because I was following along with a number of like amateur translation houses that were releasing translations for like Super Nintendo and PlayStation games. And one of them, who went under the pseudonym Aeon Genesis, released English translation for Cave Story, which had been like a Japanese only computer game. And I remember getting like really into Cave Story and also really inspired by it. And I started, after I played Cave Story, I had started like hanging around on the TigSource forums. I don't remember what TigSource stands for, but it was like the big like indie game blog at the time and had associated forums. And it was like through there that I got roped into like being a beta tester for Aquaria, and just kind of like more generally got really into indie games as a thing. Kind of like ended up making that part of my identity for a while. So this is like guy who really likes indie games. And this is happening like shortly before or during the same time as like, you know, like the 360 is coming out. Like that, the start of that generation, the move to HD. And I remember like I got an HD TV and a 360, and like I was so unimpressed with Gears of War. I don't know why. I played Gears of War again like years later and liked it. Like it didn't like blow me away, but I liked it. But at the time I was like, why is this so brown and angry? Like what happened to video games?
Brown and angry.
And this is like around the same time this is happening, like all of my favorites are like dropping like flies, right? Like I had been really into Mega Man as a kid, and like Mega Man and Mega Man X had both kind of like petered out and been like, what is this even? Like they went away. Castlevania had become lackluster Metroid clones, and
Advance Wars was gone.
No, Advance Wars is still like relatively recent at that point.
Oh, okay.
But like Mario was like 3D collectathons now instead of what I previously liked about Mario, and like I didn't like, you know, like Wind Waker was okay, but I wasn't as into Zelda as I used to be, and like Hironobu Sakaguchi and Yasumi Matsuno had both been like forcibly removed from Square. So I'm just like, everything is going to shit, and the new games are brown and angry, and like I had like what do I even do? And I got kind of like pushed towards indie games by other stuff that was going on with the industry. But Cave Story was like this perfect little gem. It's like a little bit platformer, a little bit Metroidvania, but not really full on Metroidvania. There's some really interesting stuff in terms of like challenge runs with like the secret final area, and this interesting way of like, there's these multiple routes through the game based on something as innocuous as do you take a machine gun early on. But yeah, just like a perfect little gem. And it made me realize like games didn't have to keep getting like bigger and louder. Like you could have games like Cave Story that just, yeah, if something can be like perfect in its own small way. And that ended up getting me into indie games more generally, and also like getting me into, I guess, retro games. And yeah, just kind of like, I guess that was the point at which I felt like I was okay with not being part of the zeitgeist, like okay with being out of sync with how games are just generally going, how the industry is generally going, like that I would be able to find my own stuff and that'd be okay. And that's kind of been my MO since then.
Well, that era is very interesting. For one thing, DSiWare got Cave Story. And I remember thinking that was so badass that this game that had all this hype was on DS. I was like, oh, this is so cool. I remember downloading it.
You should have just downloaded on your PSP.
Anyway.
On your modded PSP. I certainly played Cave Story on my modded PSP.
Well, that era is cool because, like, I guess it's all kind of around the same time, right? Isn't Braid also kind of around the time of...
Cave Stories... Well, I don't know when the DSiWare version of...
2010-ish.
Okay, well, Cave Story was... I looked it up to fact check it. The English version of Cave Story, like that ROM hack, or not ROM hack, whatever, that fan translation came out in 2005.
Well, I just think that... I mean, there's still obviously a lot of stuff going on with the indie scene now, but when you started getting digital distribution, especially on the consoles, the home consoles, because PC's obviously been doing that longer, but when you started getting digital distribution there...
Yeah, it was a bit of a gold rush.
Well, it was just interesting because all of a sudden you're getting these different types of games, and I like to credit like Capcom and Mega Man. It's 9, right? Yes, Mega Man 9 comes out. And it starts that new rush of like the 2D games. But especially, you know, coming from like AAA developers. But like the indie developers are doing cool stuff with that genre for a while. And it felt so fresh. You know, you had games like Braid, Cave Story, Fez, Super Meat Boy. All those titles, they just felt so innovative and unique. And like we're still getting cool stuff, but like there was something really different in that moment, in that era, when all of that was going on. And Cave Story felt really special. There's just something about it. Did you ever play the 3DS 3D remake of it?
There's one version of Cave Story. It came out in 2004 and was fan translated in 2005.
Never gone near it, huh? You should check it out.
Well, I think that brings this episode to a conclusion. Thank you for joining us, and we will hopefully not take quite so long for the next one, and I feel like I say that every time, but it's been a joy, and you'll hear from us again soon.